विश्व में हमने युवाओं की आईटी एनर्जी के माध्यम से अपना एक रुतबा खड़ा किया है और भारत इसके बाद के लिए गर्व कर सकता है। दुनिया में हम आंख में आंख मिला करके बात कर सकते हैं और ये मेरा साफ मैं हमेशा कहता आया हूं, आईटी प्लस आईटी इज इक्वल टू आईटी। इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी प्लस इंडियन टैलेंट इज इक्वल टू इंडिया टुमारो।
Namaskar everyone, welcome. I'm Ravi Gupta. I am editor-in-chief of Digital Learning Magazine. This is India's and Asia's first and only magazine focusing on ICT in education, innovation in education. And I am here to welcome you all at the 18th edition of the World Education Summit. As you are all aware that World Education Summit is a premier event happening since 2011, and it is organized, conceptualized by Elets and Digital Learning Magazine as the knowledge partner of this event. And we have been focusing on bringing together some of the important leaders in the education space to this event and creating dialogues for fostering innovation in education. And I welcome all the delegates who are watching us on the Avatar platform, which is our in-house platform developed by Elets. And this event is going to see a host of institutions, both from India and abroad, and education innovators and leading startups, leading companies who are influencing and changing the way higher education is being created, delivered, and consumed by the students. And today in the inaugural session, I have the honor and the privilege of having Shri Nikhil Agrawalji, who is the CEO of FIRST and CS at IIT Kanpur. This is the startup initiative of IIT Kanpur, and Dr. Nikhil Agrawal is leading this initiative by building our collaborations of startups with investors, the private sector, and the government sector. And we have with us Professor uh, Hemachandra Reddy, who is the chairman of AP State Council of Higher Education at Guntur. Welcome, Professor Hemachandra Reddy ji. Thanks for joining us. So we will have these two important speakers in our inaugural session, and let me request each of the speakers to give your initial remarks for around 5 to 7 minutes regarding what are your thoughts around a lot of changes have happened in last 1 year in the overall higher education space. Students are sitting at home and like learning online. Teachers are delivering online education. Lots of IT interventions have happened in a big way in 1 year, and the whole employment and employability scenario has also dramatically evolved and changed. So, how are you seeing the higher education innovation ecosystem? So, let me request to start with Professor Reddy to give your views in next 5 minutes. So I will be like asking a series of questions to each of you to keep the session interesting and interactive. So over to you, Professor Reddy. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi, for this wonderful opportunity given to me. At the outset, let me congratulate Elets Technomedia for bringing together all the distinguished academicians onto one platform to discuss, deliberate, and decide on the future of coming generations of the young minds. And I'm also thankful to them for inviting me to this World Education Summit, which is scheduled for the next 4 days, and I'm sure meaningful deliberations will happen. And Dr. Ravi, you are asking me about the happenings in higher education in the last 1 year and our thought process.
Yes.
Quite expected, last 1 year is the most difficult year, particularly for the education sector. We have seen tremendous changes and a lot of uncertainties and too many challenges for us. And ever since the pandemic broke down, we had to, within no time, without notice, we had to close down the educational institutions, and the future was totally uncertain. But then we, as educational administrators, we had to work really hard to save the academic year for all the students. And let me tell you, when I'm talking about higher education of Andhra Pradesh, I'm talking on behalf of almost 1 billion students, and it is quite huge in its volume, and we have close to 3,000 higher education institutions and 30 universities in the state. All of them were clueless due to the lockdown that was imposed, and very quickly we had to rise to the occasion. We had to bring in the technology. We had to embrace the technology. We had to very quickly train the teachers on online teaching, and also give the necessary guidelines for the students. And next 6 months, amazing things have happened in the field of higher education. I don't say exclusively in Andhra Pradesh, or the entire country it happened so. And people within no time embraced online teaching learning process. And ICT, I've been telling you for the last 25 years, ICT in education was being much talked about, but I don't know, Nikhil Agrawal ji may have a different view. IITs, they always employ high, advanced technologies in teaching learning, but in majority of the universities and higher education institutions of the states, it was chalk and talk. In spite of all that technological advancements, ICT could not be effectively even implemented in the institutions. And courtesy this pandemic, within no time, we had to switch over to online teaching learning. And let me tell you, close to 6 lakh lectures, 600,000 lectures have been delivered in the state of Andhra Pradesh alone during the last 7-8 months. and we could save the academic year as such, and we could move forward. Definitely, this time has prompted us to take some, out of the, to think out of the box and bring in new initiatives so that, higher education will be more qualitative and meaningful down the line. And with this success, initially, we decided very strongly that hereafter the teaching learning shall be in blended mode, both traditional chalk and talk in a classroom as well as online learning. And we had brought in a lot of initiatives and curriculum design, because Dr. Ravi was asking me to talk only for 7 minutes. Now I cannot describe all the initiatives. Maybe down the line, when I get an opportunity, I'll be talking about all of them. But we very quickly revised the curriculum, redesigned the curriculum both for non-professional and professional, and we brought in a lot of flexibility into the curriculum. We made internship mandatory, and not only this, and parallelly, the government also, Honorable Chief Minister of the state, Y.S. Jagan Mohan Reddy, is a visionary, and he is an young man. He started thinking, going technology side, and he very quickly proposed many things. And we today, now we are establishing remote learning centers in all 15,000 villages of the state of Andhra Pradesh, and we are planning for a huge learning management system at the state level. And depending on the need of the students at each and every village or the learners. Now, the very idea of establishing remote learning centers is to promote continuous learning, self-learning, and promote quality. And depending on the need of the student, in pursuit of knowledge, can make a request to the LMS, and the required content will be pushed to these village learning centers, and this will be seamlessly going to the device of the student. And one problem we faced all through these 7 months is there were many complaints on the network and bandwidth issues, and then gadget issues. So government of Andhra Pradesh has decided to provide one laptop to each of the student in higher education. And in fact, we have decided to go from ninth standard onwards. Learn to learn is the caption with which we are going forward. The government of Andhra Pradesh has decided to provide laptops to students from ninth class onwards. So this way, we are coming out in a big way to implement the technology solutions, and thereby, the quality of education could be, very quickly improved. So, with all these initiatives and a few more that we have planned at State Council of Higher Education, in terms of constituting a quality assurance cell, in terms of constituting a state research board, and also in terms of constituting a higher education planning board. Let me take a minute of your time here to explain the concept of higher education planning board. We have 30 universities in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Some of them are very specialized universities, and so far these universities never interacted with each other. And also, after the partition of the state, ever since we emerged new, we got 8 centrally funded institutions and 3 central universities. And most of them, we found them to be working in isolation. In fact, they're all established with a quality mandate. They were working within their own premises, as if they have no connect to the society in the immediate vicinity of them. But then we thought of bringing all of them together, and therefore we constituted higher education planning board. So this collaborative activity that we planned took off only very recently on 27th February, where all the vice chancellors of the state universities and centrally funded institutions and the directors, we came together and we resolved very strongly to work together for the cause of higher education in the state of Andhra Pradesh. So with so many initiatives happening in the state of Andhra Pradesh, we are very confident. We started our journey towards quality in higher education. We know we thought of bringing in a lot of innovations into the system, so that student will not be out of phase with this natural thinking, and we wanted to allow them to grow quite natural. Swami Vivekananda said, we want that education by which strength of mind is increased, the intellect is expanded, and character is formed. Now, once again, revisiting the fundamentals and also embracing the advanced initiatives and trends happening in higher education. Andhra Pradesh State Council of Higher Education is working on its own and bringing in a lot of initiatives, and I'm sure the initiatives will have far-reaching consequences, and I'm sure we are going very dynamic at this point of time to rejuvenate the whole system and bring in, unshackle the old beliefs and bring in new systems in place, so that student will be quite energized as long as he stays with higher education institutions. Dr. Ravi, this is from my side. Maybe I wait for my turn next time. Thank you.
Sorry, Professor Reddy, thanks for highlighting this various initiatives, and I was especially happy to note that the collaboration inside the state between the universities is many a times lacking across like each and every state. So universities are looking at collaboration with the foreign universities or universities outside India, but they're like not even thinking of collaborating with the university which is your next door neighbor, in fact. So I think it's a great initiative, and it will help in fostering innovation in the higher education ecosystem of Andhra Pradesh. Thanks for highlighting this. So let me request Dr. Nikhil Agrawal to talk about how do you see the overall scenario like changing in higher education in last 1 year, and especially you are looking at the startup segment. So how that segment in the ecosystem of the higher education is evolving. Your views, Nikhilji.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta, Professor Reddy. I have also a privilege of working in Andhra Pradesh for a few years. As a part of the last, I was a CEO for Innovation Society, the Andhra Pradesh Innovation Society. So before I joined the IIT. So certainly to respond to first one of the queries which Professor Reddy has raised regarding the inter-university collaboration, I think you are absolutely right. There is a lack of interest among the inter-university collaboration, what we have seen earlier. And number of national institutions also run away from the responsibility, which should not be the case. One of the reason of establishing national institution is to promote the education innovation best practices, not only within the institution, but also support the institution in the ecosystem. And for national institution, ecosystem is not about the geography where they are located, but the ecosystem is all across the country. And something which we have taken a very cognizant view, and IIT Kanpur, I must say that we have, particularly in the areas that I head, I take care of two very large activities. One is the incubation center, which is now the largest incubation center in the country, running for last 20 years. So we have our own consulting division, we have our own training division now. And recently the government of India has given us a $24 million grant, which is 170 crore to set up the Center for Cyber Security. So that's something which I also head. And then we are also we are also setting up the National Center for Artificial Intelligence. Again, we are requesting the government of India to support us in that area. So there are certain activities which are world class, what we are doing. So we, in my centers, what I have done is that we have started to engage with institutions and mentoring them to start the innovation and incubation centers. Now we have an expertise for 20 years, so certainly there is something, some learnings can be shared with the other younger institution or even the older institution which look forward. So today I can tell you that there is at least 10 institutions in Madhya Pradesh, in Ruhelkhand, in Uttarakhand, even in Kolhapur, in Jammu Kashmir. We are setting up these relationships, and we are mentoring those institutions. That is the one thing. Second, your question about the innovation in education, that how the things are happening. So I am very glad to say that the finally, after a long, long wait, the innovation decade has started. The COVID has given us this insight that there are more important things in life rather than giving the subsidies or doing the big events or doing something. Is that we need to invest in healthcare, we need to invest in education. Though the concept of Make in India has been going on in different ways for the last 40, 50 years, but it was mainly on the paper side, is not on the, it was more on the thought process side. So innovation and Make in India and manufacturing revolution was mainly on the pen and paper activity than actual implementation. But due to the COVID, finally I am able to see, and again I am using this word finally I am able to see the implementation happening on the ground. The kind of response we are getting either from the startup or MSME from the government is phenomenal. The government has also realized that the scheme that has been made in last 4 or 5 years or last even 10 years are finally needed to be put in the place. And I can give you examples after examples. Recently, there was not recently, 3 years back, there was a national mission for artificial intelligence been announced by the government of India for 7,000 crores, $1 billion. Now it's a huge money even by the Western standards. When I tell my Western counterparts that is $1 billion investment is happening in AI, they say, "Oh, really? Do India has that kind of money?" That's the first question they ask. I said, yes. But however, what we have done due to the whatever we say, the bureaucratic system or whatever we call it, Dr. Reddy is now part of that, so he will understand what I'm saying. As a professor or as a technocrat, he will understand. So the same challenge. Now, finally, that 7,000 crore national mission for AI has gone into the cabinet for approval. Now, the reason I am little frustrated is that the idea of this 7,000 crores was pretty good in 2018. If it would have happened, we would have saved time and we would have excelled on technology. Now we have lost 3 precious years. If you look at the United States, I was reading a statistics. I was sending it to one of my friend in US. Last year in US, in last 2 quarters, in 2000, for the Q1 and Q2 of 2020, more than 500,000 new businesses were set up. And despite of the fact that there was completely lockdown and nothing was happening. And now it is assumed that there will be 20%. So that makes almost million plus businesses are set up in United States itself. And at least 30% of them are technology startups. So when we talk about the figures here, we are still very much behind than the developed nation. And one of the reason is that we don't open up our data. We don't provide enough support. There are a couple of breakthrough steps the government has taken. Particularly, I talk about the IT. The first is the opening of the maps. Now, imagine such a small thing about the maps. Why we need to safeguard it? I was unable to understand for 70 years. We were safeguarding. Somebody wants to put up a map, let them put up a map. Now, as per the estimate, there are 1 lakh crore worth of innovation will happen in just opening up the map. That's it. 1 lakh crore, imagine. So suddenly there are so many interesting avenues will start. 25 years back, there was a company called Map My India, which was set up. Since last 25 years, they were struggling to get customers. I'm sure they will have their own Paytm movement. Another example where the government has suddenly shown dramatic steps which are welcome is setting up the National Research Foundation. 20,000 crores worth of National Research Foundation has announced. Another step, the privacy data bill. So suddenly the 2020 has given this insight, and I would say eye-opening, not only to the industry, not only to the people, but also to the government, that the innovation decade in India has to start. If it does not start now, then we will be forever remain the developing country, at least in our lifetime. So this is my opinion.
Nikhilji, great insights, and thanks for highlighting so many policy reforms which are happening and which are going to impact the overall research and development ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, and also the higher education ecosystem. Because all these innovations, what all you have mentioned about the research foundation, artificial intelligence, opening up the mapping industry, they will need skilled manpower, and manpower which is highly innovative, highly creative, and which is open to taking risks and challenges. So let me request Professor Reddy to talk about how are you, your institution as a policy maker, you are taking those steps to foster innovation in higher education ecosystem, and also building the startup environment in the higher education ecosystem itself. Yeah.
Ravi, point taken. And Dr. Nikhil, it is nice to know about your association with Andhra Pradesh. Maybe I'll look forward to meet you sometime. Dr. Ravi, you're talking about the initiatives.
Yes.
Okay, you asked me two questions.
So
Can I request you for
yeah. The question is around that many of the like IIT has set up a startup cell and created a startup division in the IIT to help the students to like look for at the startup and building up the startups. So
Yeah.
in AP also, I think government has taken a lot of steps under the Startup
I know.
India initiative. So if you can highlight those initiatives.
Yeah, Ravi, you rightly raised the issue. Our chief minister is of the view that every higher education institution shall have an incubation center and startup and incubation center. And now, with that direction from him, we requested all higher education institutions to establish their incubation centers, incubation and entrepreneurship centers. Now, very close to 250 centers have been established as of now in the last 6 months. Establishing it is not a big deal. Providing infrastructure is not a big deal. Creating that ecosystem in the educational institutions, all of a sudden, we are finding it very difficult because the traditional chalk and talk teaching mode and the students taking down the notes by hearting and reproducing kind of learning happening in higher education institutions. Quite naturally, asking them to think lateral out of the box is becoming a little difficult. So we just wanted to, collaborate with some of the national level institutions. We very quickly, without wasting time, signed two MOUs, one with National Institution of Research and Development, NIRD, and also Confederation of Indian Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise, towards, nurturing, fostering innovation and incubation in the institutions. Now, through these MOUs, we have decided to provide online training to the faculty initially, TOT we call it, and thereafter have specific sessions to orient students towards this, and also bring in all possible success stories. And parallelly, what we are doing, we are trying to identify the successful entrepreneurs in the local areas, and universities were given this task of identifying and providing such opportunities for the students to interact with them, take encouragement from their presence. So all these are happening right now in the state of Andhra Pradesh. The 200 centers started working very enthusiastically. But then I said the size of higher education system in Andhra Pradesh is all about 3,000 odd higher education institutions. As compared to 3,200 is quite less right at this point, but we are quite confident we can expand this, and we can bring in the culture in almost every educational institution. And you were also talking about the artificial intelligence. In fact, I could see Abhishek asking this question: how artificial intelligence can help in?
Yes. So these are the questions like which our delegates are asking. So Abhishek is just posting it here. So like you can have a look at it and respond to it. Yeah.
Yes. Artificial intelligence in course registration and shortlisting and enrollment process is going to be highly useful. Let me tell you one experiment we did this year. When I said 3,000, 1,500 of them are degree colleges, which offer conventional degree programs like BA, BCom, BSc, etc., 3-year degree programs. And these institutions were making admissions on their own based on the +2 performance of the students. And for the first time in the state of Andhra Pradesh, we decided to hold online admissions for all the students. Instead of asking the student to go around the institutions, we created one platform where student registers and gives his options. And based on his percentage of marks or merit in the qualifying examination, they would be allotted the seats of their choice. And after we completed the allotment, we came to know many students started complaining that they got some allotment in one college, but after they went there, actually, the college is not doing really good, and they are thoroughly disappointed at the facilities provided at the institution. They started coming back to us and asking for cancellation. Now, this is where, when we talk about such huge student admission, this admission I am talking about is 260,000 admissions into degree colleges in state of Andhra Pradesh. So quite naturally, artificial intelligence can definitely help the students choosing their courses, because the course descriptions can be made available, the institution infrastructure can be made available, and some of these questions related to the future associated with these courses, and the job prospects associated with the courses, and the college history and the college placement record. All this can be brought in, and through implementing artificial intelligence, quite naturally makes the job of a student very easy in selecting the course. So the strengths of the student and the likes of the student can be mapped with the strengths of the institution and strengths of the courses. So that way, I'm sure, when we talk about large-scale admission process, quite naturally, artificial intelligence can play a long, give a long leverage, a huge leverage for all the students. Sitting at his home, he can decide what course and what college. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you, Professor Reddy. Let me request Nikhil ji to take up this question raised by the audience, that what is the importance of innovation and entrepreneurship in education? Also share your views on Self-Reliant India mission.
So Self-Reliant India mission, I'll start from the other way around. Self-Reliant India mission is the extension of the Make in India campaign, and give you certain examples to support that why this Make in India campaign was so important, and tells the new term which has been coined or called Atmanirbhar Bharat or Self-Reliant India is so important. So during the COVID, the IIT Kanpur created a task force of 20 people. Many of them were Padma Shri and Padma Bhushans, to solve and to come up with certain technologies and products so that we can, because there was like so much of uncertainty at that time. And one of the calls, I probably you must have heard this story, that we created a ventilator in 90 days flat. Normally take 3 years to develop a ventilator. The ventilator is, if you buy it from outside, it costs you 15 lakhs, but today our ventilator is costing 2.5, 3 lakh rupees, and there are thousands of patients which are on the ventilator, which are working perfectly fine. And this achievement is highlighted in a book called the Innovation at the Time of Crisis, the IIT Kanpur Ventilator Project, written by Amitabh Bandyopadhyay and Shrikant Shastri. Incidentally, that has been launched on 7th of this month. One of the reason was of doing this fast track innovation was because of non-availability of ventilators in the country. At that time, in the beginning of COVID, if you recall, it was said that every patient will be on the ventilator. So there was no ventilators were available around the world. So what we should do? Shall we allow our people to die, or shall we innovate quickly and create a technology so that, in the same way, I remember the N95 mask, which we proudly get for 50, 60 rupees or even 20, 30 rupees nowadays, it was black marketed for 600, 700 rupees. Even the doctors were not able to get for 500 rupees. In 9 months flat, now we are the second largest producer and exporter of N95 mask. People have seen PPE kits only in the Hollywood movies. Some alien attack happens, and then there is a PPE kit somebody is wearing, and they are walking in the Hollywood movies. In our Bollywood movies, they have not even seen the PPE kits. Forget about the real life. Now the PPE kits, like we are the largest producer and exporter of the PPE kits in the world. So how does it happen? It happened because there was a call and there was a need to do this. During my visits to certain hospitals during the COVID time, in fact, I myself was there on the invitation of Dr. Nageshwar Reddy Padma-Bhushan, who is also the chairman of AIG Hospital, the largest gastroenterology hospital in the world. And he was taking me for the round, and he said, Dr. Agarwal, look at this. There are only 2-3 things which are Indian, rest everything is foreign. He said the doctors are Indian, nurses are Indians, and maybe some medicines. And the patients are, of course, Indians. Rest everything is foreign. Even the bed that we buy, even the every single equipment you see is 80-90% of the equipment is we are importing. And he was not very happy about it. He was certainly saying that, he said, why can't IIT Kanpur do something? Why can't AIG hospital do something? Immediately we agreed on signing an MOU, and today I am glad to say that with AIG hospital we are developing 3 or 4 blockbuster products. We are miniaturizing the MRI machine. We are creating extrapolation to solve the challenge about the gastroenterology with them. So ideas come from doctors, and the engineers, they develop this and get it clinically tested. So again, the another challenge is that the similar question which you have asked about the innovation in education. Now the another issue is that the departments and the university works in silos. So I don't know why, by design or by default, in India, the engineering education, the classical education, which is economics or literature, the cultural education like music and arts and all, and the medical education has kept in silos. It's like you are sitting in your own rooms, please, but you should not talk to each other. They are different, you are different, you are different. Right? Whereas if you look at the world over, and Ravi yourself has traveled across the world and you have seen the best of the universities, interacted with best of the professors, if you look at the Harvard is known for Harvard Med School, Harvard Law School, Harvard Business School. Cambridge University is known for their technology, their classics, their physics, their medicine. Stanford is again known for number of things, because they work in tandem, they work with collaboration. Now something which we are now correcting, and we have taken a step here. Now IIT Kanpur has announced to set up a medical college within IIT Kanpur campus. 30 acres we have pegged. Now the reason is that when we go to the hospital, and when Dr. Reddy say 80% of the equipment is imported, I say 80% of the equipment what you are using, Dr. Saab, is actually engineering equipment. The monitors, the pipe, the ventilator, the UV sanitization chambers, even the clothing, everything is engineering equipment. Everything is manufactured in a factory, designed by engineer. Of course, the knowledge has to come from the doctors. That day, in my office in Kanpur, the National Board of Examination chairman, NBE chairman is again constitutional post. He is the highest authority which actually grants the postgraduate degree. He came, and he was wearing a mask which is produced at IIT Kanpur, called SOSA mask, N95 mask. Now I said, Dr. Saab, what you are wearing is that actually produced 100 meters from my office. And he was like, wow, really? I said, can you take me? I said, yes, I am. Let me call the innovator who is there. And I called up the innovator and I said, and he given certain ideas to the innovator, Dr. Sandeep Patil. He said, make this mask in such a way so that I can wear it for 7 hours in the ICU or in the operation theaters. Now, this mask has this issue, this mask has this design issue. And he immediately gave a feedback. Sandeep said, within a week, sir, we will solve these problems. Now, that feedback was missing. And I can give you examples after examples that why innovation has not happened in education, because we sit in our own rooms, we don't talk to other departments, we don't talk to other people, and the idea of getting knowledge and giving knowledge has forgotten by our own universities कि नॉलेज बांटने से बढ़ती है। ये हमारे किताबों में भी लिखा हुआ है, पर हमारे यहाँ भारत में अनफॉर्चुनेटली माना जाता है नॉलेज अपने पास रखने से ज्यादा बढ़ती है। ऐसा नहीं है। नॉलेज को बांटिए, नॉलेज को आगे दीजिए, नॉलेज को सीखिए, तब इनोवेशन हैपन होगा। देन द इनोवेशन विल हैपन। एंड आई थिंक एवरीबडी इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल। आई एम नॉट सेइंग ओनली यूनिवर्सिटी, IIT is responsible, AIMS is responsible, Andhra University is responsible, Telangana University is, everybody is responsible. We are collectively responsible, and I am a professor. I am taking this responsibility, so we need to correct it, and we should correct it now.
Sure. Nikhil ji, thanks for highlighting this whole Make in India and Atma Nirbhar concepts and why it is so important for each of us. Professor Reddy, there is a question for you, that how global collaborations can help in placements in higher education. What measures your organization is taking in the field of global collaborations? Over to you. Please unmute, Professor.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. Nikhilji was rightly mentioning and pointing out on compartmentalization of education and building solid boundaries across the disciplines. And this is one reason why we could not, attract global collaboration. The narrow knowledge and interdisciplinary approach almost was not existing in higher education institutions. I don't talk about high-end institutions in India like IITs, IIMs, but the rest of the institutions, they were all compartmentalized, and exchanges within the institution, collaborations within the institution was almost not there. In fact, the NEP 2020 lays a greater emphasis on developing a distinctly Indian approach to internationalization of higher education. But this is not going to happen in one go. See, basically, it is apple-to-apple comparison. Like, when I want to, it may be my desire that I should be collaborating with Stanford. Then why would Stanford decide to collaborate with any of these institutions? Quite naturally, we should also elevate our level. And two ways we are looking at internationalization or global collaboration. One is, improve the quality of education and, go for interdisciplinary education. Define new branches and new courses, and thereby, students from all across the globe can travel down to India. So our first strategy is to attract as many foreign students as possible into the fold of higher education institutions and universities of Andhra Pradesh. We are already working in that direction. Andhra University right now has a good number of foreign students pursuing their higher education in Visakhapatnam. Very closely following the suit, SV University, the second first generation university of the state. These two are towering institutions we have, and these two are playing the torchbearer role, and remaining institutions are following the suit. And slowly, we would like to fill the part of higher education space in Andhra Pradesh with foreign students. This is one way we can ensure collaboration. The second thing is about the research. I was initially, while talking about the initiatives of Andhra Pradesh State Council of Higher Education, mentioning about the establishment of a research board. Now, research is happening sporadically at the interest of an individual professor in isolated spaces. Now we need to bring them together. We need to channelize the research. We need to promote collaboration among the departments and disciplines. So therefore, this research board is to promote interdisciplinary research and then ensure a network between high-end institutions within India, to augment quality research happening in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Once we could establish, our research outcomes to a reasonable level, this is how we can collaborate with in a second stage, we can collaborate with the international organizations or international universities. Now, as another step, Akshay, the government of Andhra Pradesh has permitted establishment of greenfield and brownfield universities. Greenfield universities under private sector. Greenfield University Act is already there. We are coming out with the Brownfield University Act. Now, at the directions of our Honorable Chief Minister, we made the foreign collaboration with top 200 international universities mandatory aspect to establish a greenfield university in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Now, you may ask me why only with the private universities. See, the state-funded universities, I should tell you, Andhra Pradesh government has taken a huge burden of higher education on its shoulders. Now we have 30 universities, I said. Typically speaking, 87% of the space is occupied by private institutions in Andhra Pradesh. Only 13% is the responsibility of public funded institutions. But then to improve the GR, to ensure inclusive growth, to ensure accessibility of education to all sections of the society, our government took some very bold decisions. The school-going child's mother will receive 15,000 rupees from the government as an incentive. Now, this way, the school dropout rate is aimed to be reduced very drastically. So every mother who sends her child to a school will receive 15,000 rupees from the government. And the higher education space, government took another bold decision of reimbursing the tuition fee entirely. The government reimburses the tuition fee. And this is, though it is said for below poverty line, students belonging to below poverty line, but 80% of the students are covered under this scheme. In addition to this, 20,000 rupees is given as a maintenance scholarship to each student. So nowhere it is happening in this country, and 80% of the higher education space is now, though it is happening in private institutions, it is the responsibility of the government. Now, government, the financial position may not permit the public funded institutions to raise its level. The fund flow is not very liberal to the public funded institutions, universities. And therefore, as a first step, we thought, we should mandate the private institutions which are desirous of establishing universities in Andhra Pradesh to have a mandatory collaboration with the top 200 world-class institutions. And without that, we are not going to permit the institution to establish here. So the student exchange, the faculty exchange, we don't see a lot of things happening in terms of faculty and research collaboration with the established foreign universities. But definitely, as a second stage, at a second stage, we would like to very seriously lay very solid connections with the foreign institutions. So these are some of the measures that we are initiating at the state of Andhra Pradesh. But definitely going in line with NEP 2020 document, we would like to internationalize the higher education space in Andhra Pradesh. There is no doubt about it, and we are working on it. Thank you, Dr. Ravi.
Excellent points, Professor Reddy, and it's heartening to see that government is supporting the students in terms of reimbursing the tuition fee and paying the family for sending the children to schools. I think these the measures will be very, very impactful in increasing our enrollment ratios in school and also in higher education. That's a
Dr. Ravi, sorry for the interruption. The last year expenditure, the budget allocation towards these scholarships is 12,600 crores. That's quite
Wow.
huge. 12,600 crores.
That's, I think,
6,000 towards mothers of the school-going children, and another 6,200 change towards the higher education student tuition fee reimbursement as well as maintenance scholarship.
Fantastic. So the amazing initiative, and let me ask Dr. Nikhil Agrawal that I think we have discussed about collaborations, and there are several questions by the audience regarding collaborations between universities inside India and outside India. And Dr. Nikhil, you have mentioned about that IIT Kanpur looks itself as a institution which is supposed to help others, and it is like helping others. So if you can highlight some of the initiatives under which IIT Kanpur is collaborating with the Indian university ecosystem and helping them in capacity development, and also if like there are any programs where other universities can collaborate with IIT Kanpur in some way or the other. So if you can throw some light on this aspect.
So certainly I must tell Dr. Ravi, and you have been in education industry for long, it's a wrong notion that IIT knows everything. It's a very wrong notion that, it's a wrong notion for anybody to say that I know everything. I think that's a stop of learning. Nobody knows everything. So there is always learning, and when we go and seek help from others, we go with the same thought process. For example, we run one of the largest agri-tech programs in the country with Tata Trust and Melinda Gates Foundation. Though we say that we know little about agri-tech and all, but eventually we go to the corporate like ITC, Escort to say that, okay, can you tell us your problems? Another is that we collaborate. In fact, we reach out to the agriculture universities like Kerala Agriculture Universities, like we have Agriculture University in Kanpur, we have Sugar Institute in Kanpur. We reach out to them and said, you have experts with you, please send us to them so that we are able to understand this whole game much better. And it happens that we request expertise from outside. Now we are getting some we recently doing some programs at the Chhattisgarh in tribal areas. Now again, IIT has never worked in tribal areas earlier. So we reach out to the local expertise and we said, please tell us that how we can collaborate and work with you. So is the other way around. Same way that there are certain things that we know better, particularly in deep technology, artificial intelligence, in cybersecurity, innovation and incubation. And we have taken a very conscious step that it's our national responsibility. When these institutions are set up, the very much idea of setting up this institution is that not only they will produce the high quality manpower, but they will help the other institution so that the whole ecosystem and the economy develops. So today I can tell you around 10 to 15 colleges that we are mentoring very closely, including some of the new IITs like IIT Mandi, IIITM Gwalior, ABS Engineering College, Jaipuria Institute of Management, IIIT Lucknow, SATI in Vidisha, then in Ruhelkhand I was talking about, Jammu and Kashmir University, UPS in Dehradun. So number of institutions, and we are now reaching out and saying that, hey, that we know something now we are doing for last 20 years, please learn from us. Because when we talk about that, many of us has decided to come back to India, and for the reason that within our lifetime that we want to see the developed tag in the country. And this will not happen that if we keep on working in the silos and keep on working within our domains. We have to reach out we have to reach out and make sure that everybody goes together. It is always an option of people who have gained education to run from the country and start working in Silicon Valley or London or New York and live a very comfortable life. But when there is a decision being taken, okay, no, we have to come and work. So it is our moral duty, it's our ethical duty that we need to create and help this ecosystem. And we are reaching out, not just yesterday I was with the leadership of Kolhapur district. So Sate Patel, the I think the Bhatija Dr. D.Y. Patel, then the PMC commissioner, and all of them were there. And then we started something called Kolhapur Startup Mission, where the local problems of the Kolhapur will be given and they solved by the startups. Now that become a template. Now we tied up with in Kolhapur. Imagine where is Kanpur and where is Kolhapur. There is not even direct connection anywhere other than the K, starting with a K. There is no other connection. So we reach out to D.Y. Patil University, and now this program is run in association with D.Y. Patil University in Kolhapur. Now that become a template. Now this template we are replicating in other districts also. We are now working with North Delhi Municipal Corporation. We are working with the district in Arunachal Pradesh. So we are reaching out to even remote locations and saying that we know certain things, we have experimented with certain things, you use our expertise, but using the local availability of the resources, you form this innovation ecosystem where the citizen problem will be solved by the local startups. So this is already happening, and we are not alone. There are other institutions also doing, other IITs, other NITs, other ISRs, other even the bigger universities are also doing. And I would say that even the bigger private universities should also started participating in this innovation building and capacity building initiative. That's the only way. As I was saying in the beginning, that's the only way that we can see the beauty of the country is that everybody should become rich enough to live a comfortable life, and that is only possible. Now we feel proud that the 40 new there was some news article yesterday, 40 new billionaires we have given last year. Why not 400? When the 400 billionaires are created, that means there are 40,000 jobs or 400,000 jobs are created. Is billionaire will not run away with his wealth. Billionaire will actually will distribute his wealth. He will create a company. More and more people will employ. The last data I will give you, and then I stop here. I was speaking to some of the old timers in IIT Kanpur, and in 80s, and Ravi, you yourself is a graduate. You probably know the statistics. In 80s and 90s, approximately 250 engineering graduates came out of IIT Kanpur, out of which 230 used to go abroad. Rest out of 20, 15 were becoming IAS officers. Today, in fact, even in the home state of Professor Reddy, some of the top IAS officers like Praveen Prakashji and all are our alumni. 17 officers in the government of India out of 60 full secretaries are our alumni, because the very large number of people were joining in IAS office and rest of them going abroad. Number of even top CEOs like IBM global CEO Arvind Krishnan are alumni. Now the trend has reversed. Today there are 850 engineers are graduating of IIT Kanpur every year, and you will be proud and surprised to know which statistics I'll give you, out of which 840 stays back in India. That is a hard statistics I'm giving you. 840 students does not go abroad. Even they have an option of going abroad. Only 10 to 15 people actually go abroad. Of course, I'm not saying that they stay in India forever. During the course of their job, they may be taking a stint outside, but they are not getting admission in IIT just to do an MS and just to have a life abroad. But now they are actually staying here. So the talent retention has started happening. And we will start seeing those changes within 10 years' time. When this talent is working for our own country, we will see the changes.
Fantastic data, and it is like heartening to see this, what we have mentioned, Nikhilji, that IIT students are looking at India as an opportunity, and now not India as a place to run away from. So it's a good sign. And I think I want to ask Professor Reddy that you mentioned about the national education policy, and there were a lot of new ideas and new changes were suggested. So if you can talk about, as the like higher education regulator and a policy maker, what are how is your organization looking at implementing NEP reforms? Please unmute, Professor Reddy.
I'm sorry, every time I'm making this mistake.
It's okay. It's okay. All of us.
This is one question that makes me very comfortable to answer. Feel very comfortable to answer this. NEP, as it is in true letter and spirit, Andhra Pradesh took it very serious, and we started implementing everything. Like I was in the inaugural. I mean, the first speech I was mentioning about redesigning the curriculum. Whatever the initiatives we have taken up in the state of Andhra Pradesh is totally in line with the NEP document. Now you look at the AP curriculum, both conventional and non-conventional. We are the first state to take such huge strides towards implementing NEP 2020. Now, when I talk about the curriculum design, I talk about a few things. We gave enormous flexibility to the student. Now, a student can choose a course within the college or can find an equivalent course in online and get a certification that will be converted into credits. So we are not forcing the student to all the time learn whatever is being taught in the classroom. There's the first flexibility we gave to the student. The second thing, 20% of the curriculum, UGC now says 24 are the mandatory credits for a student to be eligible to obtain a BCom degree or BA degree. In the domain-specific credits are only 24. Remaining, UGC says it is up to the university or the higher education institution. And we brought in 20% of the skill-oriented or skill development programs into the curriculum. Now, we had series of discussions with the Confederation of Indian Industry and the Sector Skill Council. And I must tell you, I think Dr. Nikhil must also be knowing about it. AP Skill Development Corporation is doing an exemplary job. And we had a series of discussions with these people. And whatever is useful, domain-specific skills, we brought into the curriculum. And now, this is not enough designing a curriculum. See, if I want to bring out a best possible curriculum, I can draw people from IITs and they can always design a wonderful curriculum. The success of the curriculum depends on how you deliver it in the classroom. So the curriculum design is not everything, but effective implementation of the curriculum, effective delivery of the content in the classroom are the two key issues. Now, when we have introduced a skill, the capacity is not sufficient. My teachers and roles, they are not very well versed with this, and they are not dynamic as such. So therefore, they are not expanding their knowledge base. They are not looking at new areas. And we thought, AP Skill Development Corporation initially to develop such online programs and initially go for training of the teachers and later on reach the students. But then, meanwhile, our Chief Minister took a very bold step of establishing a skill university in the state of Andhra Pradesh with 30 satellite skill development colleges, one in each parliamentary constituency of the state of Andhra Pradesh. Now, what it is? Now, the curriculum has been designed and colleges were asked to implement this. Parallelly, there are 30 colleges, one college each in the immediate vicinity of almost a cluster of institutions, imparting the skills to the colleges as well as the students. In an unconventional mode, these skill colleges can work, in the weekends and in the night time, so that student without getting disturbed from the classwork, he can go and reach them. The skill development colleges will also act as finishing schools for these higher education institutions. So the skill part of it now, 21st century skills, much is being talked about. We have given serious thinking to it, and that is in place today. Not only the design, the curriculum design, the online support from the Skill Development Corporation of Andhra Pradesh and the Skill University, 30 skill colleges, they are all complementing each other, and therefore skill is very effectively implemented. We also made 10 months of mandatory internship. Now today, we rolled out our curriculum in the month of June. Now today, UGC wrote to all higher educational institutions to think of implementing mandatory curriculum, mandatory internship in the curriculum for the higher education students. Now we said 10 months of mandatory internship, and I think I should talk to Nikhil ji somewhere about he was talking about DY Patil experiment of society problems and then solutions by the university. Within this 10 months, we allocated exclusive 2 months for the student to work on society-oriented projects. I mean, define a society problem and then work for its solution. So we almost brought in similar such changes in the curriculum of the professional colleges. 10 months of internship, lot of minors, and enormous flexibility, pace of flexible learning. Again, we gave the flexibility to the student. Minors and majors, honors degrees, all have been designed. Now, NEP is talking about multiple entry, multiple exit as a first measure. We converted the conventional degree programs into 4-year programs. We gave an exit option at the end of the 3rd year. By this time, he would have underwent 10 months of mandatory internship and all the skill programs. The final year would be entirely giving research orientation to the student. We reduced the PG duration to 1 year. And if need be, if a student wants to do PhD from the degree level, a 4-year degree can directly get into a PhD program. A 4-year degree holder can directly get into a PhD program. These are the whole lot of initiatives we already rolled out and started implementing in the educational institutions. And now the second thing, Nikhilji was talking about compartmentalization. Now we chose our two first generation universities and 3 second generation universities in Andhra Pradesh to convert them truly into MERUs, multi-disciplinary educational research universities. At the same time, we have 3 technological universities, Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University at Anantapur, Kakinada, and one RGUKT model. Probably, I don't know whether if time permits me. That's a wonderful experiment Andhra did. 20,000, we picked students directly from rural India, placed them for 6 years program, +2 and then 4 years of degree. So these 3 technological universities, they cover almost 1 lakh students enroll into all these 3 universities. So now we wanted to convert them into multi-disciplinary educational research universities. So efforts are on to bring in, but again, there are 2 issues. One, when we convert them into MERUs, the fundamental knowledge as well as advanced research. So advanced research may not be happening by tomorrow, but slowly we wanted to bring that culture into these universities, and we wanted to ensure 360 degrees of development for the student and knowledge available around him for him to choose the option. And we also permitted credit transfers. Now credit transfers are implemented in the state of Andhra Pradesh. A student studying in X college can register for a course in Y college and bring back the credits into X college. So all these features are incorporated, which has been rolled out. And I am very happy to inform you that we are more than ready to implement. In fact, we have implemented most part of NEP in the state of Andhra Pradesh by now. And I think we are the first state to do that. Thank you, Dr. Ravi.
A lot of, I think, reforms are happening in the higher education in AP, and it is a great sign that innovations in happening in the overall regulations, overall management, overall degree framework itself. So we will look at the closing remarks from the speakers on the session, and the last remarks I will request Dr. Nikhil to briefly talk about how do you see the next 2 to 3 years in the higher education ecosystem in this country? What's going to, or like, what are the changes you are foreseeing? What's going on, Nikhilji?
So I think the one of the things which also is troubling, though we highlight the need for online education, but there was a recent other statistics that also we need to highlight and we need to be aware about. There are approximately 40 crore students who are into either in school education, higher education, at some way or others. During the COVID time, only 8 or 9 crores were able to get any access to the school or colleges were not streaming the classes because they didn't have hardware. So owning even the cheapest hardware cost 5-10,000 rupees, which number of students or number of parents are not able to afford. So that's another challenge. Like when we talk about the online education being adopted at a large scale, I see a significant challenge in terms of availability of the hardware to the masses. So, and that also hampers the acceptability of the online education. So we need to find a mechanism. So certainly the COVID has taken a toll on us. There are thousands of people who have died and suffered. But more than that, imagine there are 31 crore students who had no access to education for almost 1 year. The impact on the knowledge or impact on the ecosystem of India will be seen for decades to come. That will be the gap here that will be very difficult to map. So I think we need to find all the education leaders who are possibly listening to us today. My request is that find a solution so that more number of people we can train, regardless of the pandemic. Like pandemic is there, we know that there is always a possibility that the COVID-19 happened, or COVID-22 happened, or COVID-25 happened, or COVID-30 happened. We don't know, but how do we solve it? And the problem which I'm highlighting is cannot be solved in a 1 day or 2 days. Imagine giving 31 crore devices to the poorest of the poor so that they have access to the education, so we don't enter into the dark air once again, or dark air not in terms of economy but in terms of knowledge dark air. So that is my honest appeal to everyone. We have to find a solution to that, and that will also opens up a possibility of innovations. Imagine that the hybrid curriculum or the way that we have to impart the education, we have to come up with the new ideas. People have mastered somehow the Zoom based education in the last one year, but again the clientele of the Zoom education extremely limited. So that clientele, the other clientele of 400 million people, which is 40 crore, 300 million people, 30 crore approximately students who are waiting to be trained, waiting to be reached out. So there is an innovation in education we need at this stage. Certainly the artificial intelligence, cyber security, deep tech, medical tech are also important, but ultimately we have to look at the larger possibility that we have to come up with ideas and solutions so that nobody is left behind. Everybody, we take them forward, because this country will only progress when every single kid in the country gets education.
Fantastic, Nikhilji. Thanks for highlighting this aspect of digital divide in education, which is and which has got exemplified in these times of COVID. So we have to address this issue as a overall society itself. And requesting Professor Reddy to give your closing remarks, and if you can briefly talk about next 3 years, how it will be the changes you are seeing in AP higher education.
Yeah, continue from where Dr. Nikhil left us. it's quite important for us to draw every child into the portals of the institution, make sure that he receives the knowledge, so that he shapes well before he actually goes out into the society to face the real life challenges. The schemes that the Andhra Pradesh state government has announced, I think it will have far-reaching consequences. In fact, we are taking out a baseline survey this year to establish or to assess the impact of these schemes in the higher education space. And for sure, the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh sets a very stiff target of 70 GER in the next 10 years for the state of Andhra Pradesh, way ahead of the national goal of 50 GER. So this is one major thing we would like to see, and challenges are many for us. We need to increase the capacity to accommodate so much, and also without compromising on the quality of higher education. And when I talk about without compromising on the quality of education, it's not as if we are already providing high quality education. We have to improve our quality as such. So when we are going to in the expansion mode, we shall ensure that quality is not going to suffer any further, and further have a strong resolve to uplift to ensure high quality graduates being produced from higher education institutions. And when I talk about high quality graduates, it is fundamental knowledge as well as advanced knowledge. Very quickly, if time permits, one scholar in Gurukula days goes to Rishi Shaunaka. After serving him for the last 10 years, he expresses his opinion to leave the Gurukula and then go back to society. And he asks his permission. Guru says, you can leave. But this fellow was not very confident. He once again goes back to the Guru and asks his permission, whether he is a true scholar to go back to the society and face challenges. At that point of time, Guru Shaunaka says this, Mannado Chirakalamu, Gannado Pekulaina Gandardambulu, Vinnado Vinadaganagi. Gannado, Yunnado Pedalodanu Uttamagostu. Meaning, very quickly, you are here for a long time. You absorbed the essence of various textbooks. You heard what you should hear, and you were a direct witness to scholarly discussions happening in the Gurukula. Now, all these four frame the fundamental framework, and we wanted to ensure that every student is very solid in its fundamentals. And then we also need to focus on advanced learning, particularly the 21st century skills, whatever people are talking about. So, like Dr. Nikhil was mentioning, we need to embrace the technology. We need to go for sure the blended mode of learning, and we need to ensure access to every possible child desirous of learning. And these are the three targets with which we are working. And I'm sure government of Andhra Pradesh solidly backing these initiatives, and it is going to be quite easy. And our intention next 3 years, we should really make a difference and invite the attention of the rest of the higher education space of the country to look at Andhra Pradesh. And this is the target we have set for ourselves, and we are working very seriously at it. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. So AP is one state which has been a leader in innovation and IT, and I think whole India has been following AP in like IT adoption. So I think so many reforms in the AP higher education are a good sign, and I think it will also inspire other states also to follow the AP model in higher education. And Nikhilji, thanks for joining us and talking on range of issues from policy to the Nirbhar Bharat, and also about institutional collaboration, and also the highlight I think of which was very, very heartening to see that IIT Kanpur collaborating with Kolhapur. So it's I think all this opens up new possibilities. And as Professor Reddy said, that he would like to learn that how are you working with the societal issues. So I think good examples always inspire many others, and it has a long-term effect on societal development. So with this, thanking both of you, and our small token of appreciation to Professor Reddy for joining us at World Education Summit, the 18th edition. Thank you. And Nikhil Agrawalji, our CEO First and C3I Hub, IIT Kanpur, for joining us in this very, very interesting panel discussion. I enjoyed it thoroughly and actually learned a lot so much in last 1 hour. Thank you so much. Namaskar to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. Thank you, Dr. Nikhil. It was nice meeting you. Look forward to meet you again.
Same here, sir. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Please.
And requesting all our delegates to join us again at 11:30 for our next session. And we have an interesting expo happening on our Avatar platform. So I will request all the delegates to visit the virtual expo, interact with the exhibitors who are doing some innovations. And we are looking forward to meeting you again in the next session. Thank you so much.
विश्व में हमने युवाओं की आईटी एनर्जी के माध्यम से अपना एक रुतबा खड़ा किया है और भारत इसके बाद के लिए गर्व कर सकता है। दुनिया में हम आंख में आंख मिला करके बात कर सकते हैं। और ये मेरा साफ मैं हमेशा कहता आया हूं, आईटी प्लस आईटी इज इक्वल टू आईटी। इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी प्लस इंडियन टैलेंट इज इक्वल टू इंडिया टुमारो।
Welcome, Professor A.M. Ravani.
Yeah,
Welcome,
very
Dr.
good morning. Thank you.
Sir. Namaskar, sir. Welcome, Dr. Sarvoj, sir. Welcome to the World Education Summit. Namaskar,
Thank
sir.
you, Ji.
So, one more speaker. I think Professor Dr. Krishna Mohan, sir, can you put on your camera?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thanks, sir. Thanks for joining. So, SS Manta, sir, is also joining in between. So, we are already on the live right now. So I request all the panelists to put on your camera so that everybody will on the same screen.
Yeah, problem is there might be some issues, so that's why we just switch on, switch
But
off.
we are able to
Issues.
clear, sir. Okay.
What about
So,
Professor Murthy? Is he not joining?
so Professor
No.
Murthy is not joining, sir. So
He's not joining. Okay.
Krishna Mohan sir is joining, sir,
Oh,
from the IT
okay.
Hyderabad.
Great.
And
Excellent.
SS Manta sir is also joining, sir, within 1 or 2 minutes. So I request all the delegates to, once Manta sir will be joining, we will start this session, and Dr. Sabjit Singh Anand will moderate this session, and this session will be of 1 hour, and it will be of the discussion on the basic future trends and the technologies aspect in the higher education and the best practice scenarios that to be attended in the higher education for the learning based outcomes. So, with respect, Dr. Sabjit sir, can we start this session? SS Manta can join in between.
Sure, we can do that.
So I welcome all the audience from the Pan India and from the foreign countries also to the 18th World Education Summit 2021. We are live on the 3rd of March, and our first panel discussion on the day one, that is reimagining Indian higher education scope of automation and opportunities, is one of the most important topic right now in the higher education space, as we are living in the world of technologies and the new era of the digitization. So we have the esteemed panelists from the higher education. So I would like to welcome Dr. Sarvjit Singh Anand, Director, School of Engineering and Technology, BML Munjal University, Gurugram. Welcome, Dr. Sarvjit Singh. Welcome to the 18th World Education Summit, and he will moderate this session. And I would like to welcome Dr. A.M. Ravani, Director, National Institute of Technology, Raipur. Welcome, Ravani sir. Welcome to the 18th World Education Summit. Looking forward for your welcome deliberations to this higher education conclave. And I would like to welcome Professor Dr. C. Krishna Mohan, Professor CSC, Professor Computer Science Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Hyderabad. Welcome, Krishna sir. Welcome to the 18th World Education Summit.
Thank you, Abhishek.
And we have also Dr. S.S. Manta. He will join within short span of time, and he is the former chairman AICT and Chancellor KL University, Guntur. So I will hand over this session to Dr. Sarvjit sir to take this session and moderate this session, and we are looking forward for the wonderful deliberation from the each panelist. And I request Sarvjit sir to given the equal opportunities in terms of the time and to share their deliberations and their best practices across the higher education. Over to you, Sarvjit sir.
Of course. Thank you, Abhishek. And thank you for this opportunity to interact with these very esteemed panelists here. When I think about higher education and what's happening in it right now, especially given COVID-19, I see that COVID-19 has done to education what demonetization did to money, in that, it's forcing all the transactions to happen online, and a lot of data is being collected. At the same time, if we actually think about the new education policy of the government, I kind of see a lot of parallels with blockchain technology, another emerging technology, in that just as blockchain is impacting financial institutions by taking over that central control that banks have had on money, I think the new education policy in some ways is taking away the control that we had on students throughout their degree program, and giving that flexibility to students to actually take ownership of their own learning. So in many ways, we are seeing a very disruptive time, I think, in education. And, of course, today we are focusing on two other disruptive technologies, namely, RPA and artificial intelligence, and how it has an impact or could have an impact on higher education. So the first question I'd like to pose to Dr. Krishna Mohan is, how do you see RPA and AI making an impact in higher education, from your experience?
Yeah, thank you, Professor. So, yeah, it's like, there's tremendous impact on the education sector, if I have to say in one word, one sentence. Okay. So, because of the changes that is happening, okay, especially when you talk about transformation of classes, okay, or the curriculum designing, or you take in terms of the grading for a betterment or automation point of view, and easy implementation of some administrative tasks, okay, and also like how we can predict the students' performance, okay, and their based on their behavioral changes and so on, okay. And also there are some gaps, okay, in teaching techniques, okay, which with which we can really fill the gap using this AI, okay. And also the experimental learning for students through virtual reality and games and so on, okay. And also the important thing is the collaborative learning, okay, for multiple students. Typical classrooms, you can see that the typical classrooms, okay, so like the traditional classroom is that the teacher is there, and students sit, and then one way generally once in a while some interaction can happen. But collaborative learning is something which students, I'm sure they would enjoy, okay. That's where, and with which, I mean, using in collaborative learning classrooms also, like the concept of smart classrooms and so on, okay, using the IoT, or any kind of technology, okay. So we can really transform the education, okay, in terms of the the whole thing actually, okay. So slowly, like the personalization of education, which is very important, okay. And because of the heavy work on the teachers and other things, okay, so these things can be taken over by the AI, and then it will help, okay, to in doing better, okay. So if you have to, overall, these are my important points, okay, on various things, okay, which where AI can make the future better. Okay. So basically, like that whole things are going to change. That teacher is going to be the facilitator, okay, in the future, okay, where with the aid of AI technology. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And Professor Rawani, if you could add to that, in your view, how the impacts of automation and AI is having on education within your institution, for example, even given some examples.
Yeah. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the World Education Summit for giving me the opportunity to be the part of this learned professors in this panel. And as far as the use of technology is concerned, as rightly pointed out by Professor Singh, that we are very used to nowadays of using the technology in all kind of transactions when we are buying something from the, you can say, e-market and all. So many things are going on when we are making the payment and all. But if I see the use of technology in education sector, that is not also a very old, very new concept. Since the last 1 decade, I believe, we are using the technology. Now the question comes of using AI, particularly in new technologies in education sector. Let me divide the education system, higher education system or any education system. I can divide it in, you can say, 3 parts, as any system has three portions of any system. First is the input, second is the process, and third is the output. When I say input means, in case of the education system, the potential students are there, they look for the institutes, advertisement appear, they search for the strength of the institute, they apply for the admission process, certain examination, entrance examination may be there, and then the students join the particular institute. That is, they become the part of the institute. That is the input process in the education system. Then the process part, the teaching is there, maybe theory lectures are there, practicals are there, then the teaching is there, then the you can say the evaluation part is done, the degree is awarded, and the placement of the student, if possible, that is done with the help of the, you can say, the institute where the student has taken admission. And in addition to that, one more part is there, is the whole governance or administration of the institute for handling all this, you can say, curriculum activities and handling the students in the institute and all. So if in all these three aspects, input, process, and output part, if we see, the technology is helping us a great. If I talk about the input part, where the, you can say, admission of the student is concerned, course registration is there, whether it is a shortlisting of the students are concerned, enrollment of the students is concerned, there the technology is helping us a lot. And many of the institutes in India, even they are using the technology in this, they already started using this. The eligibility criteria of the students, whether they are eligible for a particular program or not, that is also checked using this. And when they attend the classes, their attendance management, taking of the attendance, that can be used using the technologies. As far as the administration of the institute is concerned, whether it is a human resource management is there, preparation of the payroll is concerned, decision making is there, and all that, again, the technology plays a vital role. Nowadays, the using ERP in educational institute is gradually becoming very popular. But as far as the, you can say, the process part is concerned, where imparting of the education is concerned, we are little lagging in that part. We are not very used to that. Some of the people, those who don't belong to the education institute, may say that the education institutes are very lethargic. They are not used to, you can say, adopting the technology, because all other sectors, whether it's the banking, whether it is railway, whether any other, you can say, shopping platform, all they have adopted the technology to the greater extent. But the education institutes are not adopting with that speed. I disagree with that. The education institutes are lethargic. There are certain problems that because of that they are not easily, you can say, adopting the technology. We'll come to that later on. But let me first focus that how the AI can help the education institute. What are the, you can say, the potential areas? The technology has revolutionized the, you can say, the method of teaching learning. Now the students not only learn what they want to learn, but they can learn by the method how they want to learn. So it's not the content, but it's the methodology of giving the knowledge is important. Knowledge is available everywhere. Now we have a lot of many sources available on the internet. It is very easily available to the students. So in fact, the students simply for the sake of getting that particular bookish knowledge, they are not interested to attend the classes. They want to develop their skill in that. So knowledge and skill, these two parts are there. So knowledge is everywhere. The problem is of providing the necessary skill to the students using these technologies. Traditional method of imparting knowledge is transformed. Nowadays, simulation and augmented reality, all that has, these tools are available which can be utilized. AI-based question boards can be there. Now the students are more demanding. They want their query should be responded immediately. And for that, the technology can be best utilized. Question boards may be there. One more aspect is there is the personalized learning. In every aspect, whether you are buying some product on the internet using certain websites, When you search for certain things, definitely the pop-ups starts coming up where they will give you various hints based on advertisements come there. Those are things which are very much personalized. We are always now focusing on the customized things and personalized things. The same is true in case of the education also. In education sector, we have to think of providing the personalized education to the students, considering their, you can say, the pace of learning. As far as their pace of learning is concerned, little care has been taken where in case of the, you can say, choice-based credit system, where we say that the fast learner can take up more credits and slow learner can take the less number of credits as per their choice, and all these are there. But we are not using very much the technology in that part. Now the day is there where we should think of using the technology. We should track the learning path of the students, and based on that we can provide the personalized learning to all that. Virtual classroom concept is not a very new. We all know that very various platforms are there, and because of the COVID-19, all that has become nowadays in practice. But virtual classroom, now the question comes of the virtual teacher as well. This is a matter of debate. We have to think about that. We talk about the medium of instruction. Many times we say that the medium of instruction is English, Hindi, or any other language. I say that the future is where we should say that the medium of instruction is technology. We should deliver using technology. So why not the medium of instruction is technology? Thank you.
Very interesting thoughts, Professor Rawani. And I think, both of you touched upon a number of things that I think in physical spaces are more difficult, right, to implement things like, the peer-to-peer assessment systems that we could introduce because technology is there. And I personally feel that students learn a lot more when they teach, right? In fact, I would say for myself, when I started teaching, I actually started learning concepts that I thought I knew. And, through technology, if we can get students to be helping each other, like you said, collaborative learning environments where there are question boards. And, I think Dr. Krishna Mohan also mentioned the fact that the changing role of the teacher, where they become more like mentors rather than, the source of all knowledge. Now, obviously, with all of these technologies coming in, flipped classrooms becoming part of our general routine now, because of, in some cases, even connectivity issues that students had. We've had a very different environment for the last year, right? And I think some institutions have struggled more than others to keep their students engaged during this time period. Do you think we are going to lose all of this once students come back into, the environment that we are used to, the campus environment? Or are there things that we can continue to do that we have learned over this last year that technology will help us in achieving? Professor Rawani, would you like to start with that?
Yeah, sure. Actually, during the past 1 year, the experience as far as the COVID is concerned was not a very good experience. But as far as the technology adoption is concerned, is what a good experience. Rather, I should say that it is an opportunity. So all of us have tried to encash that opportunity. We have learned a lot. Teachers have learned how to deliver the lecture on such, you can say, the platforms. Students have also learned how they can understand the things on this media. But there are certain things which the students are missing. What we are getting the feedbacks from the students, that they are missing their peers, they are missing the feedback from the peers, what they learn when they are physically present in an educational institutes, that they are missing. Well, the learning in any educational institute is not merely the classroom teaching. There are many more things are there. We say that the co-curricular activities, extracurricular activities, these are all missing. So students per se, they are learning as far as the subject knowledge is concerned. Rather, I should say whether they are learning or not, that is still questionable. They are getting knowledge. That is true.
Right.
So another part is that the co-curricular and extracurricular activities all are missing. So students always, I'm getting various feedback from the students. They are very curious when this institute will be open, and they want to come back to the institute in the physical mode and attend the classes physically as they used to do earlier. But yes, because of the current situation, that is not feasible to a greater extent. You can say we may have to go for the blended kind of learning, where some of the parts of the syllabus can be covered in online mode as we used to do, and some of the part may be covered in, you can say, offline mode as the students wish. But again, there is a great part of the whole process. First is the lecture delivery, learning part. Another part in that is the experimental part, particularly when we talk about the technical education institute like ours, engineering institute, science institutes. Though virtual labs are there, that is in, you can say, a lot of efforts have been put in by the ministry, and virtual labs are existing there, but the students don't get much feel of that, and the connectivity, network access, all these are the problems which we have, because the students are from the remote places. They don't have the continuous availability of the internet access and all. One more part, which is the last part of the whole this scenario, is the assessment part. Assessment, again, proctoring of the students during the examination in online mode is again a difficult task. Though we are using various modes of assessment, is saying that is a continuous assessment, so only examination is not one part of the assessment. We are giving them in NIT Raipur various projects, term projects. We are taking the voice examination also, so that we can judge and assess the student to what extent they have understood the subjects, and the, you can say, the whole assessment is done based on that. But that kind of flavor we don't have as we were having in case of the offline mode. So the when the situation becomes normal, I think probably they would like to come back to the institute. But it's my personal view that now whatever we have learned during the last 1 year, we should now become conversant with these technology and try to utilize the technology, because that is the need of the hour. Because nobody should blame, as I said in the beginning as well, that the education institutes are not adapting to the technology. We are ready, provided all stakeholders change their mindset.
Right. Very good point. And I think that's a very important point that you just made, that, like I compared COVID for education with demonetization for money. After the effects of demonetization, everybody went back to their old ways of using cash, and there was the peak and then a reduction. I hope that education institutions will not go the same route, and we will hopefully use a lot of the learnings that we have from this period. So thank you for that. Dr. Mantha, Professor Mantha, welcome to the panel. We had just been talking about, how RPA and artificial intelligence in particular can impact the education system. And I would love to get your views on this as well, especially how your institution is using these technologies.
Yeah, good morning. I am audible, I believe.
Yes,
right?
you are. Yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, there has been some power failure around this place, so that's the reason it's been a little delayed in joining the show. Now, as far as the AI and automation and so on are concerned, there is absolutely a very big role for automation. I mean, the previous speaker was speaking about the conduct of examinations and the initiatives within education to reach education online and things like that. But I believe automation has a big role to play, whether it's the software industry. You have business process automation, you have industrial automation, you have control and automation, and of course you also have robotic process automation, which is a subject of very great interest in in the current times. Now, as far as AI, automation, and robotics will bring about major changes in markets. However, there are several specific skills that are required in you know making this happen. Now, for example, in the area of software testing, automation can be implemented to save cost and time. And most of the time, it's also used in regression testing, large scale testing. And in all those places, RPA is the way to go. Now, most of the engineering institutions, most of the technical institutions, they lay a great stress on this. And for example, RPA and AI, they are among the technical solutions that are there available in global business space, being cloud, mobile applications development, IoT, or whatever you refer to. As a result of the shift towards the digital technology that we have today, you know, innovation in the Indian IT markets, I believe several lakhs of jobs will be expected to be created in the years to come. Now, there are several areas of interest which we must look at and the engineering institutions must look at in terms of providing employment in this space. For example, whether it's online shopping that we normally do on the internet, or maybe online credit card application processing, or in all these places, RPA plays a very important role in the back end, ensuring that the digital experience that is required, and that obviously will have to be smooth if these have to succeed. For example, banking and financial services is a great place for automation to be which has manifested itself. And the vendor data is to be read, it has to be validated, and transactions to be enabled. The customer services that we are interested in, whether any of these areas, even the KYC, the information related to customers is validated by the RPA system. So therefore, a lot of traction will be available in automation, in AI, in robotic process automation, and so on. The other areas, of course, you have healthcare. There are several healthcare sectors where registrations of patient appointments, or managing claims of insurance, all these are where RPA tools are used. Then, of course, the retail industry is something that we have, where, for instance, online shopping, which I've referred to, they make use of RPA to perform various tasks as payment processing, inventory management, customer service, etc. So finally, the future for RPA and automation and AI is something that will grow in times to come. And India has basically two advantages as I look at this problem. It has both the workforce and the innovative capabilities which are required for RPA implementation. Now, technically, it can also be a global hub for RPA. With soaring demand for technology professionals, educational sector must deliver, as we all know. And some of the institutions, some of the universities are already doing it. But probably there is a lot of push that is required from the application side, which is anyway happening today, and therefore the necessary talents required for the domain will be available in time to come. Of course, the whether it's the learning, I mean, in part of education, whether it's learning management systems that are in use, which use a whole lot of data analytics and AI to create a personalized learning experience. I mean, the application areas are tremendous, are many in number, and of course the complete online examination system where They, whether it's proctored or not proctored, they all use these tools. And therefore, my understanding is that automation has a great future in times to come. Of
Great,
course,
thank you.
educational institutions and edtech companies have been working towards designing these programs, and I suppose the future will see much more happening in that space. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So, I mean, you bring an interesting point that a lot of incorporation of new syllabus, right? And this is a very dynamic space, AI and automation, and how institutions build that into the curriculum is an important aspect. I mean, from the actual perspective of using RPA and AI within the delivery of education, so the adoption not by our students of the technology, but actually its use within the learning process is what I'd like to move on to, right? So we have now, as Professor Rawani was talking about, we've learned a lot in the last year, right? And maybe, as people say, there's some truth to the fact that the education institutions were a little bit in slumber and were jerked into action because of COVID, right? When we suddenly found that our students can't come to us, we had to change our ways of teaching. And while MOOCs were already having an impact and students were getting used to that kind of content that was recorded being given to them, we all understand that just recording lectures is a very small part of the learning process, right? And so, what I was discussing with Professor Rawani was the fact that, how can we take the learnings from that year that we have spent now with COVID, when students have been away, and build that into practice even when they come back onto campus, right? Because, again, a very important point that Professor Rawani brought up was that when students were away from us, not every student had equal opportunities, right? Because of internet connectivity and so on. And so some of the ideas that I think our institutions tried to implement worked well for some students, but not for the others. But when students come back on campus and they have good internet connectivity, should we be giving up on everything that has been learned in that last year? And, Dr. Krishna Mohan, if you want to, tell us a little bit about what you are planning in your institution to say, some good practices that we have brought up. How are we going to integrate it into, as Professor Rawani said, this blended learning environment that we would be possibly creating for the students?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned earlier, and also I think Dr. Rawani also mentioned about the learning is, it's not just imparting the subject knowledge. It is the overall personality development of the student. That's what I look at it as learning. Okay. So apart from the subject knowledge, okay, there are many things they can learn being in the system and interacting with outside world and so on. Okay. So mix of both are very important. Okay. We can't and nothing can replace a teacher. Okay. So you need to have a teacher, and with the aid of the technology, okay, we should move forward. Because so as I told earlier, the role of a teacher, okay, is going to be different from the traditional ways, okay, with the technology. And it's important that we can't be away from the technology. We are forced to, and because of the COVID situation or whatever it is, like we are with the technology. We have to be with technology, using technology, but we should know like how much to use, how much not to use. Okay, because it also has its own positives, negatives. Okay, so that way, like you take even cell phone, mobile phone. Okay, it has both advantages and disadvantages. So we should know, like we have to, as a teachers, we should tell the students like how much to use the technology and where the human interaction is very much important. Okay. So as you all know, like, we have been, last after COVID, we have been interacting, through online, but nothing like, that personal interaction, one can, one used to, like, there are much more than just learn. I mean, the, subject knowledge or anything, you understand the person very well. That's where, and you learn, you see the person's expressions, you see the person's behavior. That's where the, AI can come into picture. Okay. Because AI can help, because the point here, whole discussion is about the, not only the technology of the other things, but also technology which with AI is used. Okay. How it is going to help the education sector. Okay. And you can see that there are so many, the startups which are working on AI for education. So that means there is so much potential. Okay. And as I told in the beginning of my this one, personalization, and there are many aspects of future. I mentioned the future, how it is going to be the things like we have to come up with the some collaborative classrooms, collaborative learning. Okay. So, and then predicting the student performance, which can help the teacher better. Okay. Because the teacher has its own limitations. Okay. But with the help of the technology, teacher can, better judge the performance of the, students. And also because there is a gap in teaching techniques. Okay. So the technology can help. Okay. And of course, there are so much, of the virtual reality and games through which students can learn. Okay. And also it helps in, in even the grading point of view. Okay. The AI can help the teacher, in, because sometimes we may have some biases towards some students or some, places, but where AI will not be like that. Okay. AI is a machine which, learns from the, whatever data you give. So it will be much more accurate, in certain aspects. Okay. So, and so that, it will help the teacher in taking better decisions.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's take a couple of questions from the audience. One question here is, how do we get students to learn experiential learning through the adoption of new technologies? I know you have mentioned, virtual reality and augmented reality as ways, and simulation. Are there, any best practices that you can point to in that direction? One of the interesting, situations that we have, in the first year of our engineering program at BML Munjal University, we have a program called the Joy of Engineering, right? Because we want our students to feel the joy of what they're learning, rather than just seeing it as a drudgery of having to learn something to get a degree. And that's a very hands-on program, right? I mean, students are building drones or building, the Raspberry Pi based applications and so on. So, I mean, that kind of experiential, immersive learning, are there technologies in your view that have allowed or matured us to that extent that they would allow that to happen online, and maybe even improve on what we do offline as a result of use of technology? Dr. Krishnamon, would you like to start with that one?
I think, others can, pitch in, because I just spoke about this.
Sure. Professor Rawani, what are your views on that?
Yeah. When the question comes of experimental learning, the students are very much used to attend the classes, perform the experiments in laboratories and all. And when we think about using technology in experimental learning, the great hurdle is the mindset, is the development of the culture, because we don't have at present that kind of culture. So we always think of that, I cannot learn, I cannot experiment unless I perform something on the experimental setup. So that kind of, you can say, there is a need of changing mindset. New technologies are there, augmented reality, virtual reality, these are the things which are making the learning fun. As you said that you have you can say in your starting some syllabus where a student should enjoy the learning. So this virtual reality and augmented reality is a kind of tools which are providing, you can say, enjoyment to the students at the time of learning. So this can be a medium where the students can enjoy and learn as well. But yes, definitely, the great hurdle in all this is the infrastructure problem, and secondly, the mindset, adoption of that, because we are not used to it. Both teacher and students. Teacher should also understand that with this students can learn, they can make the students learn, and students should also understand that this is the way how they can learn in a better way along with the enjoyment.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That actually, as we see these new technologies come in, nobody is talking about the poor teacher, right? Who has to adapt to these new technologies and change their own way of interaction. And we'll come to that a little later. So thank you for that. Dr. Manta, I see you're having lots of problems with connectivity here, but while we have you here, I thought I would actually ask you as to, in your experience with experiential learning, what are the new technologies that can be adopted to make the learning of, for students more experiential in nature?
Oh, there are several things that can be done on experiential learning. In fact, the several universities have implemented, including mine, there's something called as the brand factory or the fabrication fab lab, where several you need several equipment. I mean, to right from the time that one designs and goes through the process and creates smaller components, assembles them and creates a product and tests it out and so on. So several universities are trying that experiment where they provide all the facilities from the student's perspective, and they are given teams and ideas based on different teams, and the students are expected to actually go through the different ideas and come out with solutions for small bits of requirements from.
Yeah, sorry. So there is another question here about assessments. And one of the people in the audience are saying assessment is a major concern in this digital era. How can we tackle it? Dr. Krishna Mohan, would you like to take that one? Dr. Mohan, you're on mute. Professor Rawani, would you like to jump in on your experience with, assessment?
Yeah. For the assessment part, using technology, artificial intelligence can be used for the evaluation process with the efficiency. Those technologies are in place. We can think of using those technologies for the, you can say, objective types of assess question papers, subjective type of question papers, all this can be done. But if we particularly, the question from the audience is there that in the present scenario, how we can handle that. So if we want to use the AI for using that, that may require some kind of infrastructure, internet connectivity and all. But if we don't want to use that, then as I said, that as we are doing in our own institute, that we are using a model of the continuous assessment. Continuous assessment, or earlier also it was there in our institute. We used to take the, you can say, the mid-semester examination and all. So we have replaced those kind of things, and now we have the projects where the students can learn from the various sources available on the internet or through our access to our e-resources for library. They have been provided the access to them. So from there, they can learn, they can submit the reports, and then the Viva can be arranged. So that becomes one component of the assessment. Another component of assessment may be using, you can say, the direct dialogue with the students, question answering, Viva wise examination. That can be second part of assessment. Third may be a kind of assignment. Assignment, when I say, is not merely what is given in the books, they simply copy paste, but that some questions should be there which requires their personal thinking, creativity should be there in the question. Teacher has to put a labor in that in designing such kind of questions. If such kind of questions are there, is a kind of open book kind of system where the students cannot get the answer anywhere. It's not available on the internet. It's not available in any of the books. They have to learn first those things, then apply the learned knowledge in a particular situation. Based on that, certain questions can be set. So all these components can be included, and that becomes in totality the assessment for the students. Or otherwise, if you want to use the technology using AI, that can be the future. We can think of using that, and we should think and proceed in that direction, I believe. Yes, thank you.
That's a very interesting point you're making, Professor Rovani. And in fact, in my experience, even giving access to the internet to the students while they're doing their tests is actually a real test of whether they've really understood what you were telling them, because the internet is full of noise. So students who are very callous with their use of the internet can all give the wrong answer, right, as a result. But that's very interesting. And I guess that puts the onus again on teachers, that they have to come up with these very applied questions, right, where you have to use your brain power. And I think that's a requirement for the future. Dr. Krishna Mohan, are you connected again? Okay, great. So the question from the audience was, assessment is a major concern in this digital era. How can we tackle it? Can you tell us a little bit about the experiences at your institution with regard to this?
Yeah, as everybody's experience says that, there is nothing like, a foolproof system, okay, as of now, okay. So I think, all the, stakeholders involved, including government, okay, should push towards this in making it better, okay, the assessment point of view, how to make it better. And because the problem is that, even we are facing some difficulties with students doing all kinds of, indulging into all kinds of this one. So having said that, as I told earlier, teachers should supplement AI and assist students who are struggling, provide human interaction and also hands-on experience for students, okay, so that they become better, in the process of learning, okay, they become better. Okay. So, and definitely, we have to move forward, but at the same time with caution, like what to be used and what not to be used, okay. So that call is very important, because we can't be using technology for everything, okay. Where it has to be used, we should use it with available technology. And as I mentioned, with all these, whatever, having said all these things, like other speakers have mentioned, the important point is like basic infrastructure which needs to be developed for all this, okay. I think slowly, governments are taking decisions, and also the organizations are taking these steps to improve the things. But still, these are the bottlenecks, okay, for the many students, especially rural areas. Imagine we ourselves are struggling sitting in cities like Hyderabad, Chennai, Bangalore. We ourselves are facing a lot of difficulties with network issues and the other kinds of issues. So that is going to hamper our progress. So if that is taken care, I think much more things can be done in the future. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Mohan. One of the things that, in fact, Dr. Krishna Mohan had mentioned in part of his answer earlier was the fact that the relationship of the teacher with the student when they are face to face and in an environment, a physical environment, is much better. On the flip side, are there things where automation can actually improve the bond between the teacher and the student in your experience? Professor Rawani, if you want to take that.
Yeah, the having a proper bond between the students and teacher is very much essential. There is no you can say second opinion about this. The many times the students say that I don't like this subject. When we go into the depth, why they don't like the subject, the reason might be the subject teacher is not good. It's not the question of the subject content. They are not very much comfortable with the subject teacher, and that's why they are not good. When they say that I don't like the subject, and when I change the subject teacher, they start liking the subject. So it's not the content, it's the one who is delivering the lecture that is more important. The bond is very much important between the students and teacher. Using technology, this bond can be further improved. The reason is that the students, in case of the use of technology, students are not in, you can say, the passive role. They are in active role. They are interacting with the faculty. Sometimes the shy student, those who are not very much comfortable, they think that their colleague students, what they think about them. But when the question comes of, you can say, using the technology, they are more open and they feel more friendly because they don't have the physical touch with the students, and that's why physical touch with the teacher, and that's why they become more active in that case. And the role of the teacher, as pointed out by my earlier speaker also, the role of the teacher also changes. The role of teacher is not merely the lecture delivery, but not merely whatever content is there he has to deliver, but here in this case the role of the teacher will be a facilitator. If he is a facilitator, definitely the bond will be more strong bond. And students are nowadays more technology savvy. They want everything in technological platform that we can understand very well, whether it is a shopping, whether it is a banking, whether it is a ticket booking, or whether it is we particularly at this age may not like, sometimes may not be that much comfortable, but the students are more comfortable. Rather, they always prefer to use the technology. So when they are using technology, which is their choice, so definitely the other stakeholder who is the teacher, definitely when the choice matches, the test matches, the bond will definitely improve. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Dr. Krishna Mohan, you mentioned the fact that use of technology takes away a little bit from that relationship. Are there some positives to the technology use also, like Professor Rawani was suggesting, that can actually help that bond becoming stronger, in fact, in some ways?
Yeah, if you have to ask me some positives about this whole thing, like in fact, in terms of the work, especially in computer science, where we don't need to be physically present. Okay, so we are able to connect to servers. Students are, in fact, I'm having the meetings more often than what I used to do physically. To be very frank. Right. Because now I call them whenever I want, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, come for join and do it. In fact, that way, like the progress is very good compared to what offline progress. If I see all my students, no travel or no no other diversions, just focus on the. But this cannot go in the long run. It may not be good for the mental health of the students. Okay, and where it can hamper the because I see school children and some of the IIT students suffering having all kinds of mental health related issues. Okay, so I think we have to have a mix of both. Okay, so that we become better. Okay, as Professor Rawani mentioned. Okay, technology is very important. We cannot be like without technology. And of course, see, in India, the problem is like we are slow in because of our culture or many people are below poverty line, where they may not feel the necessity of, including opening bank account and things like that. Now things are changing. So the change is slow. That's all I can say compared to any other countries. Things are slow. And the other important thing is the AI can bring one important thing is that it would bring the all educational institutions and the higher education closer to the industry. Okay, so that will be very good thing I see in the future, because if you talk about Germany, okay, most of the work they do, okay, it is directly translated to the technology and society thing, okay, where that is still not happening so much like other countries. It is not, we are not there. I'm sure with the use of AI, I think it will also take us closer to the industry. And so that, because once you have these skills, okay, we know, like, okay, we are closer to the industry. We are no more like only teaching something. And I think that is another change I see that the future is going to, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you. So, the way I see it is, I think with digital technologies, yes, of course, we had a very personal service that we got from the corner store, the little kirana shop that we went to. But if we look at Amazon, the depth to which they know us is kind of almost scary, right? And with students being online using a lot of technology where we can actually track student progress, how much they're engaging with different content, how they're interacting with students, asking questions, what's the quality of answer they're giving each other. All of this gives us a very rich data set that can help us understand our students better. And hopefully, if we can create systems that allow teachers to then utilize that depth of understanding of the student to actually impart that personalized learning that both of you were mentioning earlier, I think that's a huge opportunity for us. And I hope that we will progress towards that. And even when we get into the campus, maybe some of the drudgery, the parts that are not that interesting of the teaching job can be automated, and AI can help in actually allowing us to teach at different wavelengths, right? Where we sitting in a physical, classroom, we always have to dumb down to some extent, or focus on the average student, which means the weaker student may suffer a little bit, and the very intelligent students may also not be as attentive because they're getting bored. I think those are some of the ways in which technology can hopefully help us. And from the sounds of it, I think the future is bright. What you're talking about, what you're doing in your institutions, I think does suggest that I think academia in general is taking on the challenge of adopting all of these technologies and new technologies. If there are any wrapping up comments that you would like to make, Professor Rawani, as a wrap up of the subject before we close.
Yeah. The question comes of the adoption of the technology. So we are in the era of the Industry 4.0. And it's now high time that the Education Institute should also think of proceed in the same direction. The adoption of technology, there is no alternate to it. We have to adopt it. But yes, as I mentioned that the couple of problems are there. Digital infrastructure is a great issue. Internet connectivity of the students and all other stakeholders is a great issue. Investment by the educational institutes and the government is again an issue. But we have to move forward in that direction, and that is possible only when all stakeholders, educational institute on one hand and the government on the other hand, they move together and should derive a strategy so that they should change the mindset of all stakeholders. The mindset is very much important. Only mindset change is necessary. So change management is very much essential here, because we have to move from complete offline mode to you can say blended kind of scenario or more kind of online or use of technology scenario. So at the end, I should say that the future of automation in education is basically re-engineering higher educational institutes framework. We have to re-engineer the higher educational institutes framework. Then only it is possible to adopt the technology, and that is very much essential for not only for the survival of any education institute, for the growth of the education institutes as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rawani. And any last comments, Dr. Krishna Mohan?
Yeah, at the end, I can say that, future, like teachers will supplement AI lessons, assist students, okay, and they provide human interaction and hands-on experience for students. Use of this AI technology, okay. So for the benefit of the society. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess to conclude, we can say that automation, RPA specifically, and AI are here to stay in education, and we are all ready for the challenge. And at the same time, I think just like doctors, academics still remain very relevant to the learning journey of students, and I think always will. Would be a conclusion that I would draw from all your comments. So thank you very much, and I really enjoyed the interaction with both of you, and I shall pass it back to Abhishek. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saurji sir. Thank you for wonderful this session and wrapping on the time. And I thanks Dr. A.M. Rawani, Director NIT Raipur, for giving us wonderful time, and Dr. C. Krishna Mohan. And this is the small token of appreciation from the World Education Summit and Digital Learning in Elets Technomedia. Speaker certificate is presented to the Professor Dr. C. Krishna Mohan, Professor IIT Hyderabad.
Thank you.
To Dr. S.S. Mantha, former Chairman AICT and Chancellor KL University. So, and Dr. Sarabjit sir also certificate is here. Dr. Sarabjit Singh Anand, Director, School of Engineering and Technology, BML, Munjal University, Gurugram. So I thanks all my esteemed speakers for giving us their precious time. So there is some more questions from the audience. I will send you on the mail. So I just request all my audience, if you have any other question, you can directly follow all our speakers on their social handle as well. They are very much active on their social handle. You can take it offline as well. And if you have any other question, we will help you. You just drop it your questions at education@digitallearning.in. We will directly mail to our speakers. If they revert, we will directly come back to you. Thank you, Krishna Mohan sir. Thank you for giving your precious time. Thank you, Anand sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rawani sir. Thank you for giving your time.
Nice meeting, Professor Rawani. Nice meeting, Professor Sabarbit Singh. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
So from here, I request Deepak to play the AV, and from this we will move over to the next session, that is Advancing Learning in New Normal and Beyond by Philip Murray. We will move on to the next session, and after AV we will directly come to the Philip Murray. Welcome, Dr. Philip Murray. Welcome to World Education Summit 18th edition on 3rd of March at 12:30. Welcome, Philip. Welcome to the WS.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. It's quite an audience to follow on after the panel discussion you've just had. So let's hope I can come up with something interesting to keep everybody
Welcome,
entertained.
Dr. Philip Murray. Welcome to World Education Summit, the 18th edition on 3rd of March at 12:30. Welcome, Philip. Welcome to the WS. So, moving on to the session. So, I request all my audience of World Education Summit, we are giving the exclusive session by Advancing Learning in the New Normal and the Beyond by Philip Murray, Vice President Asia, Blackboard. So here Philip sir is going to demonstrate a wonderful presentation, and I request all my audience, if you have any question, please drop it down. We will take it live with the Philip, and over to you, Philip sir. After that, we will take a Q&A.
Fantastic.
By Philip Murray, Vice President Asia, Blackboard.
Great.
Philip sir is going to demonstrate a wonderful presentation.
All right, so we might just get started. Thank you very much. I've got a little bit of delay on the audio, so hopefully we'll be okay. Great, thank you very much. All right, good afternoon, everybody. After the panel session we've just had with Dr. Mohan, Dr. Anand, and Professor Rawani, it was an extremely interesting and thought-provoking conversation. So I was thinking about what it was that would be important to discuss after a conversation like that. And I think there were probably three elements that we consider from a technology perspective. When Dr. Mohan was discussing the issue of technology, he was focusing on how it can help. And then there was also a brief discussion about the joy of learning from Dr. Anand, but also one of the challenges was keeping faculty informed and involved in a particularly challenging time. And of course, Professor Rawani covering a broad gamut of the challenges that NIT have faced, but how they've effectively and successfully done that. So I thought what we'd do now was just talk a little bit about how do we see some of these technology challenges being applied, and more effectively, how are they actually becoming useful for institutions to deal with. Now, obviously, over the last 12 months, the challenges have been profound for the industry. I don't think it's any surprise to say that what we are looking at today is unprecedented in its involvement. When we were discussing a little bit earlier, or listening a little bit earlier to the panel discussion, and they were saying that perhaps some of the greatest challenges have faced education have occurred in the last 12 months. I think that's a very fair assessment. Whether or not we're looking at how we're actually teaching, but also what's being taught and where it's being taught, those are the elements that we look at too. But it got me thinking about this. And one of the key issues, of course, when it comes to any challenge, is how do we actually deal with that challenge? What do we actually do from a technology perspective to help an institution deal with that? Now, this is a little bit about Blackboard. Some of you are very familiar with us. You use us currently as your LMS or analytics engines. Others of you, your children or your family members may have attended universities where Blackboard has been the LMS of choice. But of course, we're not the only one out there. There are many platforms that apply, but they're all kind of focused on something similar. And it's about how do we deliver the education requirements for students, educators, and families. Because it's not just about the student, of course, it's about the holistic group, that who wraps around it. So when we consider all of these different elements and trying to put all these pieces together, particularly when we're dealing with what is effectively an unprecedented change in the industry, this is what we were asked. At the beginning of 2020, we were being asked by institutions around the world, how do I bring my institution online? I don't have 6 months or a year to do this. I have 4 weeks. Now, for many of you who have been involved in enterprise resource platform deployments, student information system deployments, any large technology enablement and deployment, this can take 6 to 12 months, really, without really lifting a finger, without really doing much different. 6 to 12 months is a way of delivering something, but being asked to come back and present how we can do what takes normally 6 months and do it in 4 weeks, and making sure that we minimize disruption for everyone. That includes the the students, the educators, leadership, and family as well. So it really became a very focused engagement because we looked at it this way. Whenever we view a challenge or a change in our lives, whether or not it's brought on by our own personal choice, or again, it's forced on us by external events, we all go through this loop, this change journey. It starts off with the status quo. We were where we were, and suddenly this change is applied. It brings about a degree of shock and denial. You know, what's happening? Why is this happening? What's gone wrong? You know, why is this happening to me? And then we move through into the next phase, which is the disruption phase. This is where we're looking at our life and what we have traditionally been comfortable doing. And we are then, those feelings that come out are those of frustration and fear. And I think all of us last year dealt with that. Some of us have continued to have that challenge right through the rest of the year. And unfortunately for some of us, it is still continuing now. So the disruption and the frustration and fear that comes with it. But then we kind of start to come out of this trough, this negative trough, and we start looking at this issue of acceptance and exploration. Exploration meaning, how do I get out of this? What do I need to do now to change what I've traditionally done? But I have to now accept that the status quo is finished and that I have to now start looking to rebuild and refocus my efforts. So one of the elements, of course, for us as a technology provider, and it doesn't really matter whether it's an LMS or a new teaching style or opening a new university or a campus, this element is always the same. It's the difference between the depth of the trough in the disruption and frustration and fear stage versus the height that we could possibly get to if we can remove as much of that as possible. And that's what we call the change journey. Now, for many of you that have been involved in this from psychology, organizational behavior, this is very common. You've seen this many, many times. But for some of you perhaps attending today, this might be the first time you've seen it in a graphical form and putting some terms towards it, some reaction, some emotional content behind it, so that you could say, yeah, I did feel that, or I did struggle with that, or that's why that occurred. So dealing with it and trying to reduce the negative trough, trying to flatten the curve, if you would, was the ultimate goal, because by the deeper the curve, the deeper the trough, the harder and longer it takes to actually get to the other side and to move out. So we looked at this as a model which said, okay, how can we start putting this into terminology that from a project management perspective, we can apply? So we came up with these 4 terms. Now, I'm certainly not saying that we invented this. No, this is a well-known project management process, but it's interesting and it was useful for us to actually put it together in how we actually spoke with clients and institutions and organizations and associations around the world. Putting a degree of clarity. What are we trying to achieve now? What are we trying to do? Motivation. Attempting to draw out the motivation about what we need to address and moving people forward. And then establishing what are the capabilities that we had. What were the skills that people had around us, whether or not they came from Blackboard or our partners, or of course from our clients. What are the capabilities we can draw on to help us here? And lastly, what knowledge can we apply and what knowledge can we gain from this activity so that we can use it again and improve it again and again. So this then became a mantra for what we refer to as the rapid implementation plan. Now, sometimes we come across management terminologies which we scratch our head a bit about and go, I'm not sure what that actually means, but this one's pretty straightforward. It's a way for us to look at how do we take what could be a 6 or 12-month program and project and compress it but not miss anything. Right? How do we get it all together so we can deliver it quickly and effectively and replicate it? So we looked at this then as a client journey. We thought about it and said, okay, when we look at these elements right across the gamut of all of the requirements that we have, it really touches on these client journey elements, these subsets, if you would. The awareness. So how are we talking about it with clients, industry leaders, and associations about how do we actually apply this? Raising the awareness about the solutions that might be out there so that that trough of depression, that trough of concern or fear or frustration can be minimized somewhat, because people then have the opportunity to know that there are resources that are out there that can help. And then we move to the onboarding, about getting that information out, getting that information applied, and coming up with methodologies that people can feel comfortable with using and that are consistent. One of the great challenges we've found over the many years we've been doing this with clients is that in many cases the hardest step is the first step. How do I do this? How do I deploy a major technological implementation or a change management goal? How do I actually start applying this? And that is one of the great challenges for many institutions. It's the how do I do it? So this is where the enablement part of a program came in. It's matching expectations of a customer with their experiences that they have and trying to align the two of them as much as we can so that we can reduce, again, the frustration and the fear factor that goes with these sort of major projects. And as we continue through, we move into an expansion of that program, rolling out through an adoption and getting them, our clients involved and partners involved in this, students, faculty, and parents as well, all of them involved, so that they have that capability to do this. And then lastly, how do we help optimize and improve it over time? Getting to a go live date is great, but it's what happens after that. So let's just talk about a couple of very quick cases here in India that were undertaken during 2020. One of the first institutions that we applied this new methodology for, the 30-day plan, was Chandigarh University. Now, obviously, as one of the largest private universities in India, the number of students that were required to be moved from a traditional face-to-face engagement over to a fully online, but with minimal disruption or zero disruption, was huge. This was bringing on board 36,000 students in the course of, and I'll show a little bit about a calendar, but literally in the course of a week of bringing them on board. Workshops, enablement, all of those content development requirements, but also applying the technology and deploying it and testing it, making sure that it works with integrations like the student information systems, and then making it available and continuing to support it even after go live. Now, what also happened, of course, was that once we have all this data, and again, the panelists who were speaking a little bit earlier clearly were articulating that with a lot of this work now being moved online, that we have an enormous amount of data. Well, data without a reporting functionality is really useless. It doesn't tell us anything. It doesn't help us. So again, as we continue to move through this process with the institution, we were then able to outline and deploy more insightful institutional reporting via the technologies that were behind the scenes like Blackboard Data. My colleagues and our channel partners in the exhibition hall will be talking a bit more about that as well, if you'd like to know more about how that works. But as a general, in a nutshell, what it does is bring together all of the different usage data and make it available for institutional reporting that is live in real time. Nobody needs a report that takes a week to compile. You might as well not bother. But what it does do is allow you to look in real time what is happening, but not just make an assessment based on historical data. It's being able to make an assessment that becomes somewhat predictive of what will happen in the future based on immediate past performance and immediate past behavior. Those of you who have been down the psychology route know that the greatest predictor of future behavior is, of course, immediate past behavior. And having that sort of information available gives institutions a much greater capability to predict with much higher certainty what will be the outcome of a particular program or a cohort or even down to a student. But this was a very large institution, 36,000. Subsequent to Chandigarh University, we have deployed this methodology around the world for lots of other universities. But I wanted to take another example from India as well. And this is GNA. Again, extremely well known, but GNA had a slightly different capability or a slightly different requirement. It wasn't to bring all of their students on board. It was to bring a subset of their students on board. So rather than the whole institution, they needed to bring on a subset, 2,000 students that would be brought on board. But they didn't have 30 days. They had 14 days to do this. And of course, halving a project deliverable doesn't mean that you do the same amount of work in half the time. You end up having to do a lot more than that because you're doing multiple tasks all at the same time. And that was obviously a challenge for everybody, but it allowed us to achieve it. More because we were able to focus on what was really important. With the assistance of the teaching and learning team from GNA, they were clearly able to set and agree a goal right at the start about what needed to be done, and we all stuck to the plan. And that's how you can end up doing these sorts of things in 14 days. So, what does that actually look like? When we view this, one of the key elements that we see, of course, is that the development and the capabilities for the planning that goes into it. Now, we can just say, hey, let's do a kickoff and a planning meeting. Well, it needs structure behind it, as I'm sure many of you have been involved in major initiatives at your own institutions or past institutions. The kickoff and the plan sets the tone for everything that happens subsequent to that. So making sure everybody's clear about what's involved, what are we trying to achieve, and when, makes it so much easier for everybody. So the kickoff and planning, and these are the elements that we incorporated. In concert with that, and in parallel, the other integration teams were working on the SIS, so the student information system, and bringing that data in and being able to make sure and test it without disrupting the students and faculty that were continuing to work behind the scenes. Then we started on the admin training, making that available to the administrators, to many of the faculty as well, a little bit later in that program, then making it available to all of the faculty so they could test their skills in a risk-free environment, help migrate their content over, and we were doing that, and making sure that all of that would work with workshops and help desks, and also access to all of the Blackboard communities that we have around the world. But of course, trying to create something like this is extremely difficult to do in and on your own. It requires the utilization of best practice. And these best practice methodologies reduce the amount of time that we have to worry about something because we can apply what has been done successfully before. And utilizing this best practice methodology in this allowed us to reduce dramatically the time that we spent, improve the quality of what we delivered, and meet, again, the go-live dates that we were required to. Now, the rest of the slide is grayed out. Expand, adopt, growth, and advocate, because these are works in progress as we continue on. Expanding, looking at what else can be delivered and how it can be approved, what other elements can be adopted, and what other elements can be advocated for. But again, an adoption is not just adding more stuff. It can also be removing elements that aren't quite working as they should and replacing them or removing them altogether. Many institutions have found that when they've looked at this with fresh eyes, when they've looked at it without having to replicate what they've done face to face, a lot of the processes that they were dealing with are redundant, are just not required anymore. And they can look at it with a fresh eye and say, do I really need to have that? Is that adding value, or is that just costing time and money and is not really helping us deliver? So having that fresh lens, and again, the panelists earlier were talking about looking at these in a fresh way, because it will be very difficult for institutions to return to what they did before because they've seen what can be done now and in the future. So, just as we start to wrap up, I was looking at these and wanted to show you what an example of a 30-day plan might be. Now, for the For the calendar, this is an artificial calendar, of course, it's just a 30-day plan. But we broke it into 4 discrete modules. For many of these projects, they would overlap and they will be happening concurrently. But other ones, of course, would be quite discrete and they would be started and completed in a very fixed period of time. But for the ease of understanding, the first week of a 30-day requirement, we would then look at getting contracts secured, project planning and pre-call, assigning teams who are going to be working on what part of the project, and then getting the kickoff calls and the initial deployment of the technology completed. Next, we move into what we refer to as the integrations. So this is where the student information system would start to be brought in, that data would be tested and checked. We would then be looking at different onboarding capabilities for this. How do we help the administrators deal with some of this new workflow that they might need to have without compromising what they were doing? The third group, the third break is then how do we help the faculties? How do we help address that? Workshops, teacher readiness reviews, having all of these things available and getting them out there as close to the start of semester as possible. The closer we are to the start of a semester, the closer we are to someone using those new skills, the more likely they are to remember them and use them. Right? We all know what it's like when we go to a workshop and we're taught some new skills, and unless we use them quickly afterwards, we tend to forget them very quickly. Within 2 weeks, we've probably forgotten 50% of everything that we learned in a workshop. So here, having them as close to the start of a semester as we can made it much more effective because people learned those skills and they were still fresh in their mind. But the last group was the one that really took everybody's effort, whether or not you were from the consulting team, from the SaaS onboarding team, whether you were from my sales team and the SE team. It's the last part of it, which is the live onboarding of all the end users. And again, doing that right at the end, because students would have only received, in many cases, their enrollment data a few days before the start of semester, once their payments had been approved and they'd received whatever documentation was required, and they were then available then to continue that. And then that's why we had the student onboarding. And as we looked at this finally, which was the calendar of activities and breaking that down into a fundamental step-by-step, we could see that there are lots of things that were happening all at the same time, that they were looking at these ways to say, at 9:30 in the morning on the 17th, we're going to be doing this with you and your team. Then another call at 12. This is how it was developed and this is how it was deployed. Now, for an institution to go through and create this whole methodology themselves from scratch, never having done this before, is an enormous ask. But being able to come to someone, the group like Blackboard, and say, we need help to do this, we can come to you with these sorts of step-by-step processes and say, this is exactly what you need to do. And we can do it with you, or in many cases, we can do it for you. So, as we just sort of finish up on this part of the session, it's not just a part of just saying, okay, well, let's go off and teach. Let's go off and do some workshops. Let's go off and hand out some flyers. Well, there's a lot of resourcing that is left behind for the institution to continually reference, whether or not it's templating, video libraries, how-to guides, student orientation guides. All of these elements are then made available and are easily to replicate and can be immediately deployed when needed. Because it's not just one time we'll be doing this. With every new intake of students at the start of a new semester, for many of these resources, they can be used again. We don't have to do the whole project again, of course, but again, a lot of that can be reused and can effectively be applied. So, okay. All right. right, so this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, and I will look at some of the questions in the chat.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. Are you getting my voice, Philip, clearly?
Yes, I can. Perfect. Thank you.
So we had all the audience have gone through your wonderful presentation regarding this 4-week strategy to take it the institution online. So Philip, there's a major question that the chunk has been rising, that what are the major challenges you are facing, that you are currently working with the various countries, also you are working various in the deep rooted in the India also. So what are the major challenges you are facing that in India and other countries that has to be overtaken in adapting this online education before COVID and this post-COVID situation? What are the major challenges you are facing that you are currently working with the various?
So I think there are probably three. Again, the technology part of it is the more straightforward part. Technology is widely available and we have that capability right across the world. But where we do see a challenge is either helping faculty understand there is a new way that they can teach without risk. The second part, of course, is the parental part. What do parents expect for students to be doing? Is it okay for them to say, for me to do a university degree, maybe I could be sitting in my kitchen or in my bedroom doing this? Is that what I'm paying for a university degree to do? So a lot of the challenges actually came from parents. And it's not just in India, it's around the world. So they would come to us and the institutions and say, hey, I'm not sure that this is what an education at a university needs to be, my child watching Collaborate or doing stuff online. When are they going to go to school? Right? So again, that was the second group that we saw. The third group was a somewhat unexpected group. And this was the ministries of education. Many of them were looking at it to say, how do I actually report this? I'd traditionally been used to receiving a report which showed how many students came to class, how many people attended and how long. But now I'm asking for a report for everything being online. And I don't necessarily know how that relates back to accreditation. So institutions were trying to deal with this element with ministries to say, well, the students attending online, they're providing all their assessments online, but then they're also participating remotely. But does that mean that they aren't earning the same quality of a degree or a diploma program that they would have got before? Again, that was the third and somewhat unexpected group.
Thanks, Philip. Thanks for this. And there's some more question that, Philip, we will directly take it offline. And I request all my audience that if you have any questions, if any query, if you want to avail the solution of Blackboard, we have whole team in the exhibition area, so where you can directly chat and directly have a face-to-face meeting with the team of the Blackboard. So by this, we are wrapping up this session, and we would like to present a token of appreciation to the Philip Murray from the World Education side. This is the speaker certificate presented to the Philip Murray, Regional Vice President, Asia Blackboard. Thank you, Philip. Thank you for giving your precious time to this World Education Summit. Thank you very much. And from this, we will move to our next session. I request Deepak to play the AV, then we will move to our next session, that is Reimagine Your Enrollment Game by Rohan Pashari, co-founder and CEO, Cialfo. Welcome, Rohan. Welcome to the 18th World Education Summit.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you for that warm welcome. It is the 18th year that you've been doing this.
So actually, we have started in 2011, and it was inaugurated by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. From there, we are initiating this World Education Summit in India, in the foreign also. We have done in the almost 9 countries in foreign. So right now, due to this COVID situation, we are coming to the digital platform. So I would like to introduce all my audience. We are here with Mr. Rohan Pashari, co-founder and the CEO of the CIALFO. And here, Rohan is going to give a exclusive session presentation on the Reimagine Your Enrollment Game. So Rohan, by not taking your time, I just hand over this session to you so that you can share your deliberations and the best practices that the CIALFO is doing right now in the higher education space. And any question from the audience side, we will directly take it live. So I request audience, if you have any question, please put it here. We will take it live from the Rohan. So Rohan, over to you.
Thank you, Abhishek. I'm just going to share my screen.
Please.
Let me know if you're able to see this properly.
Sure, Rohan.
So are you able to see my presentation now?
1 second. No, we are not able to see right now, Rohan. You select the presentation while sharing the screen. Select the presentation you want to share.
Yes. Is this visible now?
No, Rohan.
Okay.
Rohan, help me. Could you mail me that presentation right now?
Sure. Sorry.
I just texted you my email ID in the chat box.
Okay, great. Appreciate that.
1 second, so that we can. 1 second. So that I can learn on behalf of you.
Okay. So I'm just sharing the Google Doc link.
Sure.
You can just, open that up.
Meanwhile, you can share your screen from your end also. Go to share button.
Yeah, I have the share button. I'm clicking on share.
Then share screen. Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem to. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Perfect.
So, Rohan, can you make it full size? Yes, now it is full size.
Okay, awesome.
So, Deepak, can you take us backstage? So, after this. Okay, Rohan.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Abhishek. Welcome, everyone. So, without much ado, we're going to start. How do you reimagine your enrollment game, and why are we even talking about it? So why are we talking about it, and why am I talking about this to you? So just to give you an idea, I'm a co-founder and CEO of CIALFO. We are an AI-driven software solution that connects the entire global higher ed ecosystem. So I grew up in India, and I faced a lot of challenges applying for colleges in India itself, as well as while I was looking at colleges abroad. And that seeped in me an idea that the college application process should not be this difficult. I had to apply to every college separately. Every application process was different. Every tests were different. And that's not how it should be. It should be a much simpler process. So we took on the challenge of solving that for the Indian community, for Indian students, as well as for the global community. So CIALFO started about 3.5 years back to solve this problem with a mission to make education accessible for 100 million students in India and globally. And CIALFO is a Latin contraction for Citius, Altius, Fortius, which in Latin means faster, higher, stronger. So we work with high schools on one side and enable students to manage the career and college application process. And on the other side, we work with universities like yourselves to help you with your enrollment, with your recruitment journey, connecting you to students and counselors across India as well as across the world as well. But we're not going to talk all about C Alpha. I just wanted to give you that background. We're going to talk about how can you as university leaders get into the virtual recruitment game. What I think now people have realized that recruitment cannot happen the way it was happening for the last 2 decades or for the last century even. The pandemic has accelerated people's adoption of technology, as well as the higher education institutions' adoption of technology. And how can you use technology to be able to improve your efficiency, to improve your outcomes on recruitment? That's what we're going to talk about, and then we'll spend a few minutes talking about how you could potentially use C Alpha for recruitment as well. So the way we see the landscape for higher ed institutions like yourself is that technology is getting adopted in 3 specific areas. First, in the recruitment area. Second, in the education delivery area, which is also popularly known as the OPM space, where how do you use technology to impart education, learning outcomes. And third is how do you promote student well-being and student success, which can happen through careers, mental well-being, and other ways. We, in this presentation today, going to talk about recruitment and technology in recruitment. So last year, we started working with over 800 universities. In May, the first fair that we organized, we saw 245 universities participate in a virtual fair that allowed them to engage with students on our platform. These were universities, the top universities around the world, like Cornell, UPenn, NYU. In India, we had OP Jindal, Kriya, even Ashoka participating in these universities. And we had 55,000 students registering. This was the first of its kind virtual online university engagement. There was a lot of hoo-ha. There was a lot of excitement, given that all of the travels had come to a screeching halt, and people needed a virtual space to be able to continue that connection between students and universities. And we did a bunch of these virtual fairs, virtual college connections across 2020. But towards the second half of 2020, we started facing issues, which we then realized it was a global issue. Students were not only using Zoom for education, they were using Zoom for personal events. They were using Zoom literally for everything. I mean, I attended 3 Zoom weddings. I'd never imagined you could attend a wedding over Zoom. So people started facing this Zoom fatigue. Colleges were not getting the same amount of engagement that they started getting in the early days of 2020. So what colleges started to do with our help was understand what students need from this engagement online. Moving just that virtual fair experience online is not enough. Similarly to this event, the EL ETS event, just moving a physical fair online is not sufficient. You have to recreate the entire experience in the virtual space. So what do students need? What do counselors need? So we did surveys, which I'm going to show you in a bit, the results of that. How do you work with counselors in schools that do have counselors? Or how do you work with teachers to activate the interest of students? And then how do you have real-time engagement with students? When you go to a fair, when you go to a physical fair, that's the only time you can engage with the student. That's the only time you can communicate with the student. But in a virtual environment, that's not true. In a virtual environment, you can communicate and engage with the student all around the year. So how do you use technology to do that? So we enabled a system, and again, I'm just using C Alpha as an example. You should try to use systems that allows you to engage with students all around the year. These fairs, these virtual events, is not engagement is not just an event; it's a process. Now, even if you are looking to engage with certain peers in this event, the ELTS event, um, just this event will not be sufficient. You will hopefully meet new people. You will probably meet people that you already know through your previous connections, and then you will need to continue engaging with those people. It's the same with students. Engagement is not an event; it is a process, and you need software solutions that enables you to maintain that engagement all down the year, or even as soon as grade 9. Um, so that you can start, even when the student starts thinking about colleges, or even before they start thinking about colleges, you need to start branding your university in their minds. So as we did some of these solutions towards the second half of 2020, we started seeing those results again. And even though we had an increase, but a slight dip in sort of the in the growth rate, it shot back up in towards the end of Q4. So we had about 400,000 students engaging with universities last year, in 4 lakh students engagement in universities last year. So what did we learn? These are some really interesting insights we got by surveying the students. And feel free to take screenshots of this survey and share it with your larger team. So one of the first questions we asked was, what type of online engagement are you interested in when you're talking to universities? When we spoke with universities, we realized that universities want to chat with the students one-to-one. They either want to chat or want to do a video call with students one-to-one. That is how universities think they get the most or best outcome. But when you talk to students, that's low in their interest, low in their agenda. They want a webinar with presentation and live Q&A. They want content-driven workshops with tips and insights on different aspects. They want case studies about how it is to apply to a university, how do students succeed in your universities. And they also want to see what other students, their peers, are asking in that session. So even though this may be your preferred method as a university, you have to understand your audience, the students, are looking for something else. And how can you enable that as part of your online recruitment activities, as part of your admissions team, your marketing team? How can you provide them content-driven insights to engage with them? Secondly, we asked them, what do you want out of the event? Okay, this is your mode of engagement. What do you want? What content do you want? They said exclusive information about the application process. We saw a lot of university reps were just giving the information that was already available on their website or brochure or whatever. That's not what a student wants to come in for. Today's Gen Z, they all have access to internet. At least if they're attending your online event, they have access to internet. So getting the same information that is already available on your website is not helpful, is not meaningful. So they want information that makes their attendance valuable. So what exclusive information can you give them about the application process? Specific questions. So always having time for specific questions to be answered is really important for them, almost as important as getting exclusive information. They want to see what others are asking, and they want to have a presentation which is fun. And then they also want to hear from the alumni of your universities. When you were traveling physically from city to city or state to state in the country or even abroad, it was very difficult to bring alumni with you. If you are in Mumbai, for example, and if you have alumni living in Mumbai, maybe you could have brought somebody along with you. But it's very difficult to do that at scale. But online, that is not difficult, right? I mean, you can have an alumni living in any part of the world, and you can get him or her to attend your sharing session. But we saw universities were not doing that. 1 out of every 100 universities brought in an alumni or even a current student to talk about their university experience. And so that is what we mean by you have to recreate and re-understand the virtual recruitment, space, and the limitations that you had in a physical environment, you no longer have in the virtual environment. Of course, there are some limitations in the virtual environment which were not present in the physical environment, but I find with the adoption of technology, the new people who are new to this virtual recruitment space are bogged down by the limitations of technology, but not utilizing the advantages that virtual recruitment brings. So my presentation really is about how can you open your mind in doing some of the things which you typically not be thinking of doing, which is really not that difficult. Bringing alumni, making sure that you are spending some time to have their questions answered. So if you have 60 minutes, 20 minutes to talk, you at least put in like 15 minutes or 10 minutes for them to ask questions. How much do you enjoy virtual events? We also wanted to ask, do they like it? Do they not like it? So only 4% said they are getting sick of them. So virtual recruitment is the future. That is how the future of recruitment is going to be. Of course, it needs to fit into their schedule. It may not be synchronous, which means they may not want to attend it when you are presenting, but they would want it to be recorded so that they can watch it later. And 1/3 of them said they like it a lot. So really, think beyond your virtual booth. It's not a replica of your in-person event. Your pre-event and post-event engagement are equally important, if not more important than the event itself. So we saw a lot of universities, at least last year, focused very heavily on that 30 minutes or 2 hours that were in the booth, but would not do anything pre or post-event, virtually, because that was their mindset. I would go to a physical event, physical conference. I would do as much as I can in that physical conference, and that's it. But that's not true for the virtual environment. And create original, exclusive, really value-driven content, and make sure that your attendees know. So that again goes back to the pre-event engagement, letting your attendees know that this is the solution. This is the content that you are going to be sharing on that day. And I also wrote an article on this. It's a 7-8 minute read. So encourage you to go in and see what solutions you can have for college recruiting. So think about your entire journey, right? So if you look at the entire journey of a student recruitment, it starts with awareness, then engaging those connections, engaging those students that are aware about your university, and then finally recruiting them. So what kind of solutions, what kind of ideas that you can work with to create that awareness in the first place? How do you engage with those students, and then how do you finally recruit? This is how you look at it. And these are some on the side, on the right, some of the things that we do on every step of the way to help you drive success through C Alpha for your recruitment solution. So we spoke about online university fairs, and that is what was majorly happening last year, but we also running data analytics. The connect function, which allows you to connect with students all around the year. How do you connect with students, again, all around the year, engage with them all around the year, engagement workshops, and then finally the enroll service. So again, I'm just using C Alpha as an example. Feel free to get in touch with our team. We have 2 members of our team throughout this conference until Saturday, Hiten and Anmol. But use this as an example. If C Alpha can help you, that's great. If you can do this yourself, that's great as well. But take this as an example of how you can, what you should be doing as part of your admissions and marketing team. So from the student point of view, virtual college fairs, student workshops, value-driven workshops. Again, a lot of online content of case studies, ambassadors, especially for universities that are new for in the minds of students, which are not your IITs or SRCC of India. How can you show student success online and constantly be talking about relevant case studies? How can you connect with students via a technology platform, not just at a one-time event, but all around the year? What data analytics can you utilize either within your team, within your CRM, or with a company like Cialfo that enables you to engage with the students in the right manner? Now, if you're a university, let's just take Kriya as an example for no other reason, but just top of my mind. They're not going to get equal interest from every state or every city in the world. So which city, which state, or which kind of high schools do they get most amount of interest? Is it really important for them? And are you able to drive that insight within your team, within the system that you use, that allows you to focus in regions where you're already strong in, where already there is a brand awareness, and the way you'll talk to students in that state or city is going to be very different compared to states or cities or schools where I, as a Kriya Institute, Kriya University, do not have awareness. So the kind of conversation we'll be having would be different. And then from counselors' perspective, in schools which have counselors or teachers or heads of schools and principals, how do you do virtual school visits? How do you, again, have a meaningful way to engage with counselors? Not just talking about, come and look at my university, but actually, giving them meaningful content, interview series, professional development with counselor teachers. And all of these things, you should be looking to do it yourself. Or again, Cialfo can help you with these things, and feel free to contact us. But really, the game changer, the way we look at it, is students applying to a university. We really see this as a game changer because there's a huge friction for students to actually even apply to any universities. Again, when I was applying to universities in India, 15 years back, I had to apply to every university separately. Some universities had, online forms, but most of them were physical forms. But even if physical forms went online, that's not enough for 2021. Students have a lot of friction if they have to go to your university website and then apply. So how can you be part of a common system that students are already using to reduce the friction for students to apply to your university? And that is, again, a platform like Cialfo does. We are already engaging with 2.5 lakh students on Cialfo, from the top schools in the country. They're already using Cialfo. They already have the transcripts, their reports, their academic profiles on Cialfo. They're already applying to a bunch of universities on Cialfo. So if you would be using Cialfo, students could apply to your university directly. That reduces the friction significantly. Now, if students don't have that in their school, or a way they would be going to external application websites, there may be a drop-off if they don't understand anything and don't have an easy way to contact the representatives. They may get biased influence or biased advice from agents that may or may not be representing different kinds of universities, and the documents may also be inaccurate if it's not coming directly from the high school. So this direct apply system really brings the entire application together, transparent. You have full control as a university because it's coming directly from the high school, and it's verifiable documents. So this is really the new world of applications, really going from the awareness engagement to actually the application point of view through technology, monitoring the students' engagement through the entire journey from grade 9 to grade 12. And yeah, and this is, and I've also sort of taken you through how so you can leverage Cialfo. Through that, we are not just a university platform; we are a high school platform that works with high school counselors. We work with 1,400 high schools around the world, and 4 different offices in New Delhi in India, and in 3 other countries in the world. In India, we work with over 200 high schools. These are just some of the names that we work with in Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, but we are present in over 25 states in India, and students across the country. And not only individual schools, but some of the best school groups also use CL4, so Pathways, JBC, and Indus, Shivnadar, Heritage Shriram, and some others as well. So again, how do you look at all-around presence and engagement across the country? How do you engage students virtually, not just through an event, but through a process? How can you drive value-driven content to counselors, to students? How can you leverage your alumni base, your success stories, your academic professors to really inspire students to join your institution? And I'll leave you with this sort of quote that students come join universities to really innovate, and universities really brand themselves as learning centers, as innovation centers. But if you look at just industry as a whole and across industries, education, ironically, is also the industry that innovates the least often, the slowest. But we brand ourselves as innovation centers and learning centers. So it is time that we use a pandemic as a excuse to really digitalize each step of our process, starting from recruitment, online delivery, and student well-being, and help students be the change makers for the next generation. So thank you. This is a team. This is a global team. We have people all around the world, but you'll be working with Hiten and Anmol. This is Hiten's email right here, hiten.shah@cl4. He's based in Mumbai, but of course available online to anyone. So join us in making the students' dream a reality, and happy to take any questions if we can, Abhishek.
Yes. Rohan. So, Rohan, can you request, can you remove the sharing screen?
Sure.
Yes. Thanks, Rohan. Thanks for this wonderful presentation. I just went through all the slides, all the decks that you have shared right now. So, actually, one question, Rohan, right now that you have just talked about the major, about the students and the university admissions. So, what the major challenge that you are seeing that you have just mentioned in the presentation in the session here, that people are coming to the physical, people are filling the form physically, they are coming to the virtual. So what the major challenges regarding the admissions you are seeing, Rohan, in the basis of the university and the students? Are the online is a particular solution, or physical plus online can be the helpful? How you tackle this situation, Rohan?
So I think for the first time, education institutions, be it higher ed institutions like colleges and universities, but even high schools, they're facing a true challenge from private, online solution centers or education centers like, Byju's or An Academy, where students can go into these, online solutions and get the content that they want. And higher ed institutions and high schools also have to really think in those lines and really move fast in adopting technology to be able to provide content in an engaging, value-driven way. It's just been a very long time that schools and universities have not innovated, and now they just need to move fast. So I really feel it's a mindset issue. Some schools, some universities will tell you it's a budget issue. We don't have the budget for this and that. They don't have a budget for this, for digitalization or technology because they don't think it is important enough. If you give it enough importance from the top down, from the owners or trustees of the board, give it enough importance and see this as an existential issue, then and budget will be allocated. So I don't really see budget as an issue. I see mindset as an issue. And if the mindset can be solved, or people can understand how important it is to adopt technology in all forms of education, everything else will be solved, because technology is not really a challenge. The technology already exists for engagement. People can teach you how to use the technology, right? I mean, your faculty may not know how to use the technology, your admissions officers may not know how to use the technology, but there are professionals who can train these people. And of course, all of these things cost money. So you can allocate the budget, if you think it is important enough. So that's why it all comes back to mindset.
So, Ron, how you are seeing the future? Like in 2019, we are in the physical state. In 2020, we are in the online state. In 21, we are going to hybrid. So, such a dynamic change is coming right now. So, how we are seeing the impact on our state of minds? How the things is going to be into 2021 and 22, so on, in terms of admission, placements, and other all things. Is there a major impact of this technology, or things will change come to the physical only? Right now, technology will be a
Yeah.
part, or
So that's a great question, right? When we were just getting into COVID-19 situation in say March, April 2020, people thought this will be like a 2-month thing. Things will be back by August. When we were in August, people thought things will be back by January 2021, and we are still now in March 2021. Things are not back to the way things were in 2019. And I think now people have started realizing, at least I'm seeing, people talking about things are not going to come back to the 2019 ways. This was not just a unique year, 2020, 2021. This is an acceleration towards the future. And things are not going to come back to 2019 ways. Your event, Abhishek, is not going to come back completely physically, again. The technology adoption, virtual recruitment is here to stay. Virtual online content delivery education is here to stay. The faster you adopt, the faster you can visualize the world, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. The more you will be able to not only survive this change, but actually succeed in this change.
thanks, Rohan. So I request all my audience, if you have any other questions regarding the CR4, how to avail this solution, so Rohan and his team is available at the exhibition also. We have our own booth of the CR4 where you can directly meet also, and you directly have a face-to-face meeting also. And if you have any other question, you can put your question directly to the Rohan also. He is much available on the social sites also. And you can directly follow Rohan on the social sites, and you can directly put the question on the education@digitallearning.in. So we can forward the question to the Rohan Patari. If he revert, we will get back to you. So thank you, Rohan. Thank you for giving your precious time to World Education Summit. And from this, we are wrapping this session. And this is a small token of appreciation, Rohan, a speaker certificate from our side to Rohan Pasari, co-founder and CEO of CIALFO. Thank you, Rohan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thanks for having me. Hope this was helpful.
Yes, sir. Sure. Thanks, Rohan. So by this, we are moving to the lunch break. And I request all my audience to please join us at 2 a.m. for the next session with the esteemed panelists from the PAN India. See you at 2 p.m. Thank you. Thank you very much.